Chapter 174. Zhouwen felt that Wang Mingyuan was rather interesting as a counselor. When Zhouwen had questions, Wang Mingyuan would answer them. He didn't say much, but he explained in detail. Wang Mingyuan wouldn't take the initiative to teach Zhouwen, Jiangyin, and company anything. He would answer whatever they asked. Usually, he was doing all kinds of research. Zhouwen could understand some of the research projects, but he couldn't figure out the meaning behind some research projects. For example, Wang Mingyuan had gotten Jiangyin to record the entire life process of an ant in a day, but Zhouwen couldn't figure out the meaning behind it. It was just an ordinary ant, not a dimensional creature. It couldn't even be considered a mutated creature on Earth. What surprised Zhouwen even more was that Jiangyin had actually stared at the artificial ant nest made of transparent material for 24 hours a day. In any case, Zhouwen felt that the few of them were rather strange. Only Hui Haifeng looked relatively normal. Although there weren't many moves in the 7 distribution palm, it wasn't easy to learn. He had to first learn all 7 palm techniques and understand the essence of the palm techniques before he could better understand and master the 7 palm techniques. Zhouwen was Zhouwen after all. He focused on practicing and learned the 7 distribution palm in less than 2 days. All he lacked was proficiency in the use in actual combat. After all, Wang Mingyuan didn't deliberately care about them. That fellow, Zhong Zia, would sleep on the table every day after he finished his work. No one cared about him. After Zhouwen put away the chain, he took out his mysterious phone and sat in a corner. He opened Dragon Gate Grotto's dungeon and chose Old Dragon Cave. The blood-colored avatar quickly found Dragon's Well, which Wang Mingyuan and company had named. In-game, Dragon's Well was a hole. There were no signs of artificial excavation, nor were there any chains. Zhouwen knew that Dragon's Well was very deep and extremely cold. He summoned Silver Wings and switched to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra that strengthened his constitution before descending Dragon's Well. The diameter of Dragon's Well was about a meter. The deeper he went, the wider it became. However, after descending about 50 meters, there was white fog everywhere, making it difficult to see clearly. What was even more terrifying was that the temperature of the white fog was ridiculously low. After using the lotus flower Buddha body, Zhouwen still felt extremely cold when he came into contact with the white fog. The frost drilled straight into his bones. Not long after using all his strength to descend into the white fog, the screen turned black. The blood-colored avatar had frozen to death. Although Zhouwen's body was fine, he shared the same feelings as the blood-colored avatar. The feeling of freezing to death didn't feel good. Even the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra and Lotus Flower Buddha body can't withstand the white fog's frost. How low is the frost temperature? Zhouwen was secretly alarmed, but he was somewhat indignant. After some thought, he revived the blood-colored avatar again and switched his essence energy art to the ancient Sovereign Sutra before getting the blood-colored avatar to enter Dragon's Well. Every time Zhouwen circulated the ancient Sovereign Sutra, he felt as though there was a flame burning in his body. He wanted to see if the heat of the ancient Sovereign Sutra could resist the cold. The moment he entered Dragon's Well, Zhouwen felt something different. Previously, when he used the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra, although his body's resistance had increased, he could still feel the cold. Now that he was using the ancient Sovereign Sutra, he felt his body warm without any cold. When the blood-colored avatar entered the white fog, Zhouwen only felt a slight chill. Soon, the heat in his body drove away the chill. Zhouwen was delighted. The ancient Sovereign Sutra really had a miraculous effect on resisting the cold. Enduring the terrifying cold, Zhouwen continued descending. The lower he went, the colder it became. After 200 meters, even the power of the ancient Sovereign Sutra seemed to be lacking. It made Zhouwen feel a chill, but it was only a slight chill. Furthermore, it didn't really harm the blood-colored avatar's body. How deep is this Dragon's Well? Zhouwen's vision was obstructed. Thankfully, the Truth Listener earring had given him powerful hearing. With his eyes, he could hear dozens of meters away in the white fog. If the fluctuations in the distance were large enough, Zhou could also hear further. After descending another 100 meters, he still didn't reach the bottom. However, Dragon's Well was already rather wide, turning into a huge underground space. Zhou's hearing was no longer able to reach the surrounding stone walls. When Zhou descended to nearly 500 meters, his body felt like it couldn't take it any longer. If he continued descending, he might freeze to death like the first time. I can't go any further. Zhou hesitated for a moment before getting the blood-colored avatar to summon a golden warrior companion beast. This was an ordinary golden warrior with pretty good stats. Zhou had hatched it with the intention of using it for fusion. The golden warrior didn't know how to fly. After being summoned, it immediately plummeted and sank into the white fog below, vanishing in a blink of an eye. Zhou used Truth Listener's ability. As the golden warrior's body tore through the white fog, it formed sound and material flows. It made Zhou feel as though he could see it, forming an image in his mind. The golden warrior constantly plummeted. The cold produced by the white fog made it difficult for the golden warrior, who had the golden body life providence, to withstand it. Frost appeared on its jade-like skin as it spread across its body at a discernible speed. After plummeting for a distance, the golden warrior's body froze into an ice sculpture as it emitted creaking sounds. Not long after, it suddenly exploded, turning into ice shards that plummeted down. The shards became smaller as they fell. Just as they were about to disappear, Zhou heard a terrifying scene. As the tiny ice shards streaked across the white fog, Zhou heard them land on something. Then, an image formed in his mind. It was a creature that meandered like a mountain range. It was entrenched on a huge stone pillar that resembled a mountain peak. At the top of the stone pillar, like an offering, there was an oval object. The fluctuations produced by the ice shards made contact with the oval object, allowing Zhou to clearly know that the surface of the object wasn't smooth. Instead, it looked like it was formed from silk threads. That's a cocoon? The cocoon in Ant City surfaced in Zhou's mind. The oval object below seemed to be very similar in size and shape to the cocoon. Before Zhou could think further, the terrifying creature that had been struck by the ice shards suddenly opened its huge mouth and let out a long roar. It was a very strange sound that Zhou couldn't describe. It didn't sound like a beast's roar or a bird's roar. It was like the long hum of a musical instrument. Boom! Wherever the sound wave reached, the blood-colored avatar's body immediately exploded as the game screen went black. Is that thing down there really a dragon? Is the thing it's protecting the same thing as the cocoon the golden flying ant is protecting? Zhou was filled with puzzlement. Chapter 175. Zhou felt that it was impossible to snatch the treasure from the mouth of the terrifying dragon-like creature. That fellow had only casually roared and instantly killed the blood-colored avatar at a distance of 200 to 300 meters. This was probably a top-notch existence among epic creatures. It might even be a mythical creature. In comparison, Zhou felt that the golden flying ant was much easier to deal with. From the looks of it, I need to think of a way to finish off the golden flying ant and see what's inside the cocoon. Zhou was extremely curious. However, up to now, Zhou was still a little lacking. Even if he continuously used the Grandine Wind, he was still no match for the golden flying ant. Killing the golden flying ant seems a little difficult. Is there a way to obtain the cocoon without killing it? The more Zhou thought about it, the more feasible he found it. Before that, I need to have sufficient speed. The Dragon Gate Fairy skill is more skillful, but momentum and absolute speed aren't its forte. Zhou frowned in thought, thinking of what primordial energy skill could make him faster. Zhou, you look worried. Did you encounter some problem? Wang Mingyuan happened to walk over and asked when he saw Zhou frowning in thought. Teacher, Zhou subconsciously called out. He felt that it was easier to address him as teacher like Zhongzia, so he kept addressing him that way. What problem did you encounter? Tell me. Wang Mingyuan said to Zhou with piqued interest. He didn't seem to have the air of a tutor. When he had nothing to do, he often cooked for Zhou, Jiang Yin, and company. If one didn't know his identity as a tutor, They would treat him as a big brother next door. Teacher, I've learned the Dragon Gate fairy skill, but I feel that it's not fast enough. Are there any faster primordial energy skills at the legendary stage? Zhou asked Wang Mingyuan about the question on his mind. Wang Mingyuan thought for a moment and said, the Dragon Gate fairy skill is considered one of the best primordial energy skills of the legendary stage. There are primordial energy skills that are faster than it. Our Sunset College has such a primordial energy skill, but it's not easy to obtain it. What primordial energy skill is that? Which domain is it produced in? Zhou was delighted when he heard that. Outside Sunset City, there's a legendary dimensional creature called the sun-chasing bird. It has a primordial energy skill called sun-chasing. It can allow people to be faster than Dragon Gate fairy skill, and it's more than twice as fast, Wang Mingyuan said. Zhou was taken aback when he heard that. The reason why Sunset College had such a name had a lot to do with Sunset City. The dimensional zone that Sunset City had yet to be entered by humans. It was even more terrifying than Tiger Cage Pass. To hunt dimensional creatures there, especially ones that could fly and had unparalleled speed-type primordial energy skills, it was just too difficult for humans to kill them. Although the sun-chasing bird was only at the legendary stage, Zhou felt that the difficulty of killing it was probably no lower than killing the golden flying ant. After all, it wasn't easy to catch up to it in the sky. Regardless, there's always hope. I'll head outside Sunset City to take a look. If I can download Sunset City as a game dungeon, it's not impossible to kill the sun-chasing bird. Zhou applied for leave from Wang Mingyuan and planned on searching outside Sunset City to see if there was the tiny palm symbol. Wang Mingyuan didn't restrict their freedom to begin with. Now wasn't the time to pull the chains, so he let Zhou go. Zhou left Old Dragon Cave and walked up the steps of Dragon Gate Grotto. He was thinking about how he could obtain the cocoon from the golden flying ant if he couldn't kill the sun-chasing bird. Suddenly, Zhou felt his heart palpitate as though something ominous was about to happen. It made him break out into a cold sweat. Zhou was alarmed as he immediately sized up the stone steps opposite him. He saw a man walking over. The man wasn't ugly, but he looked a little cold. Yinzhen? Zhou recognized the person as the unease and palpitations in his heart intensified. When he first met Yinzhen, he felt that he was a little sinister. I've been waiting for you for so long. We finally meet again. Yinzhen walked over step by step as he stared at Zhou. Clearly, he was here for Zhou. Zhou turned around to retreat, but he was stunned when he turned around. He saw a figure in a white coat standing not far behind him. It was almost sticking to his back, but he didn't notice it. The figure looked like a human, but its feet didn't touch the ground. Instead, it floated above the stone steps. That's my life soul. His name is Dr. Soul. Yinzhen's voice sounded from behind. Zhou's expression changed as he summoned his wings, hoping to fly up with the God Fiend. However, Dr. Soul's left eye flickered like a camera. The light in his eye was a strange red. When he was illuminated by the red light, Zhou's body, which was about to soar into the sky, seemed to freeze. He couldn't move an inch. Zhou felt all his muscles stiffen. He couldn't move his body no matter what. He couldn't even summon his companion beasts. Yinzhen walked in front of Zhou and sized him up. He said with interest, I've investigated all the students who entered Death City. Only 3 of them didn't touch the black tree you mentioned, including you. However, you said that you touched the tree. Why did you lie? Zhou was trapped by some force, unable to even speak. Yinzhen snapped his fingers as the red light in Dr. Soul's eyes flashed slightly. Zhou immediately felt his mouth regain its function, but the rest of his body remained immobile. You're just a coroner, not a policeman. Why do you have to do this to me? Zhou said, It's fine if you don't want to say it. I can say it for you. After you came to the morgue, Wang Lu and company were revived. As for the other students who touched the black tree, they only briefly fainted before quickly returning to normal. This is clearly abnormal. Tell me, what did you do? Yinzhen said as he stared at Zhou. I don't understand what you're trying to say. Let me go immediately, or I'll shout for help. Zhou said with a frown. It's useless. Within the range of Dr. Soul's power, everyone's brain waves or souls will be affected and controlled. Unless I wish it, no one can see or hear us. Even if I kill you here, no one will react. Yin Zhen said indifferently. Zhou shouted in disbelief. Indeed, the cultivators who came and went from Dragon Gate Grotto didn't seem to hear or see them. Answer my question, or let me dissect your body and find the answer myself. Yin Zhen's eyes were fervent like a madman. He held a small and exquisite scalpel in his hand that emitted a cold glint. Chapter 176. You are a forensic doctor. Don't you know that this is against the law? Zhou kept trying to use all sorts of powers in an attempt to break the power that imprisoned his body. However, it was completely useless. Dr. Soul, who was staring at him from behind, had a sanguine glow in his left eye as though it had shackled his soul. Zhou couldn't use his primordial energy skills, circulate his primordial energy art, or summon his companion beasts. Even the lost Immortal Sutra that had been automatically circulating seemed to freeze. However, this didn't make Zhou feel despair. This was because in this extremely harsh environment, there was an unfamiliar yet familiar power growing in his body. Laws are made by people. If I'm strong enough, I can make the law. This isn't a problem, Yin Zhen said calmly, but the fervor in his eyes intensified. But you aren't strong enough to ignore the law. If you kill me, do you think you can escape the punishment of the law? Zhou said, that's why I got Dr. Soul, to take action. Otherwise, a legendary student like you wouldn't need me to use my life soul. Yin Zhen approached Zhou and used his fingers to pry open his eyelids. He carefully looked into his eyes and said, even if I dissect you here, no one will know that I've been here, much less know that I dissected you here. Therefore, it's best you answer my questions obediently. What did you do? How did you affect the souls of those students? I've said it before. I don't understand what you mean. I can only sense the aura of the black tree on Wang Lu and company. I don't know anything else, nor did I do anything, Zhou said. It's fine. It's fine if you don't want to say it. All I need is a small surgery to know everything about you, Yin Zhen said as he gestured with the scalpel above Zhou's head. As Yin Zhen spoke, he gestured with the scalpel above Zhou's head and said indifferently, I'll cut open your skull, extract your brain, and read the memories inside. This isn't difficult for Dr. Soul. Why are you doing this? What benefits does this bring you? Zhou asked through gritted teeth. He knew that Yin Zhen wasn't joking. Benefits? Yin Zhen slowly said, all this while science and medicine have been unable to resolve the problem of the origins of life. The so-called explanations were also full of loopholes. Life is not a machine, and human consciousness is not a simple intelligent program. How does consciousness come into being? What is its relationship with the body? Can consciousness exist independently without the body? These questions are all very interesting. In order to figure out these questions, you can kill your own kind? Zhou looked at Yin Zhen as though he was looking at a lunatic. Life is short, and we will die sooner or later, but my research is eternal. If my research is successful, and I can extract the consciousness of humans, or rather, the soul, then all humans can obtain eternal life. At that time, I will be the savior of mankind, and all humans will be grateful to me for giving them eternal life. During this period, the sacrifices required by the Research Institute are also necessary. That is the inevitable result of human progress. Yin Zhen seemed to be saying something as if it was only natural. You're really crazy. Zhou was dumbfounded. Are you crazy? That's right. This is a crazy era to begin with. In the past, who would have believed that there were dimensional creatures in this world? Who would have thought that there would be companion beasts and those magical powers? In those dimensional zones, there might be true gods. And what I'm doing now is to become a god of mankind, allowing human life to truly belong to them and not be controlled by any other power. Aging, disease, death, and disability will all become history and no longer be a problem that will plague mankind. The more Yin Zhen spoke, the more excited he became. If my research succeeds, All humans will be able to let their souls leave their originally weak bodies at will and enter a higher body. For example, you can use a war chariot as your body. You can also use those powerful dimensional creatures as your body. As long as you are willing, you can have everything. It won't be like now, only having a weak and pitiful body. Zhou didn't know if he should call Yinjin a genius or a lunatic. He only knew that he was really crazy, and he wasn't willing to become the inevitable sacrifice he mentioned. Perhaps what you said makes sense, but unfortunately, there's nothing special about my body. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you sure you want to dissect me? Zhou calmed down at that moment. While he was dissecting his body, the familiar yet unfamiliar power was brewing, like an ancient beast hiding under a calm sea. Zhou knew that the power was his life providence, the sigh of the king, produced by the combination of the lost immortal sutra and his talent. Ever since he advanced to the legendary stage, Zhou could sense the existence of the sigh of the king. The life providence seemed to be a part of his body, like he had an additional organ, an existence akin to limbs. However, before this, Zhou had no idea how to use this new organ in his body. He could sense its existence and knew that it possessed immense power, but he was unable to use it. Only when his body was restrained by Dr. Soul and he couldn't move an inch did Zhou finally clearly sensed the existence of the sigh of the king and how to use it. Humans were very strange animals. Most of the time, they would only use the organs they needed. Many organs that they didn't need would degenerate due to prolonged periods of idleness, making them forget how to use them. A typical human's life providence was a passive ability that didn't need to be actively used. However, Zhou Sigh of the King was clearly different. When Zhou clearly sensed that the Sigh of the King could be used by him, the power had already begun to spread through his body like an ancient beast occupying his body. Scientific research has many uncertainties to begin with. It's inevitable to take the wrong path. After all, this is research to become a god. No matter how many failures there are, they can be forgiven. Yinjin's expression turned colder. The scalpel in his left hand was already pressed against Zhou's glabella as he said without any emotion, "Don't worry. I won't let you suffer too much pain. I'll first cut open your skull and expose your pineal gland. Then, I'll do the left side of your brain, followed by the right side of your brain. When your brain is completely cut out, Dr. Soul can use his powers to read the information within." As Yinjin spoke, the tip of the scalpel shimmered with a crystalline light. Under the control of his slender fingers, it was about to slice into Zhou's skull. Boom! At the instant Yinjin's fingers moved, the power in Zhou's body that resembled an ancient ferocious beast erupted. Chapter 177. The scalpel's blade had already reached the skin on Zhou's head and was about to slice through it. However, at that instant, Yinjin's pupils constricted. The scalpel's edge shimmered, but it couldn't move an inch forward. It was as though it was being held by an invisible force. No matter how hard Yinjin tried, he couldn't move an inch. "You really have a secret." Instead of being alarmed, Yinjin was delighted. The fervor in his eyes intensified as terrifying power erupted from his body. It transformed into wisps of light that gathered on the scalpel, making the light on it even more terrifying. It was as resplendent as the sun. The life soul behind Zhou, Dr. Soul, also released terrifying power. He also held a scalpel condensed from spiritual light and slashed at the back of Zhou's head. Zhou's body didn't move, but Yinjin and Dr. Soul seemed to be grabbed by an invisible hand. Suddenly, their bodies lost their balance as they floated in front of Zhou. Yinjin's face was filled with horror as he struggled with all his might. The sanguine light in Dr. Soul's eyes kept flickering, but it was completely useless. It was as though they were being controlled by an invisible hand, unable to move or make a sound. As the hand tightened, their bodies were squeezed more and more. Their flesh and blood deformed, their bones bent, and their eyeballs protruded out. No, impossible. How can a legendary student possess such powerful strength? Yinjin was horrified. He used all his strength, but it was difficult for him to resist the terrifying force. Bam! With a violent sound, Yin Jun and Dr. Soul were crushed by the invisible force, dying a violent death. Zhou watched helplessly as Yin Jun was crushed, but he didn't feel good either. The power of the Sai of the King Life Providence had awakened, and the power was unimaginably immense. After Zhou Wen's body was awakened by the power, all his bones creaked as though they would snap at any moment. His flesh and organs were also under immense pressure. All the blood vessels in his body protruded, and many of the weaker capillaries had ruptured. His organs felt like they had been crushed, and the pain was unbearable. Not only was Yin Jun unable to move, but even Zhou Wen himself was immobilized by the terrifying force. It was as though he was carrying a mountain on his back. Unlike Yin Jun, Zhou Wen could see a shadow appear on his body. It was the shadow's hand that had crushed Yin Jun and Dr. Soul. Bang! Unable to withstand the terrifying force, Zhou Wen knelt on one knee and spat out blood. The force that descended on him became more and more terrifying, exceeding the limits of what his body could withstand. His organs felt like they were about to rupture. Just as Zhou Wen imagined that he would become the first person in history to be crushed by his own life providence, the force receded like a receding tide, shrinking back into his body. Zhou Wen's body suddenly relaxed as the pressure vanished. His mind relaxed as he felt his vision turn black. He collapsed to the ground and fainted. When Zhou Wen woke up, he realized that he was lying in Wang Mingyuan's laboratory. He was sleeping on the only bed in the laboratory. It was originally where Wang Mingyuan rested. His students usually slept on the floor. He didn't see Wang Mingyuan, Hui Haifeng, or Zhong Zia. Only Jiang Yin was sitting in front of an oil lamp, reading quietly. "Why am I here?" Zhou Wen moved and felt his entire body ache. He didn't have any strength, and his body was as limp as a newborn baby. It's best you don't move around. Many of your bones are fractured and your organs are damaged. Although Counselor has already used his life soul to heal your body, you still need to rest for a period of time. Otherwise, those injuries will relapse, Jiang Yin said casually. "Why am I here?" Zhou Wen asked again in puzzlement. Logically speaking, Yin Jun had died on the spot, and he was unconscious. Even if the police didn't believe that Yin Jun was really killed by him, they should have brought him back for investigation. He should be in the police station's hospital now. When Hui Haifeng went out to buy things, he heard someone screaming. He went over to take a look and found you unconscious on the ground. You were seriously injured, so he immediately asked the teacher to treat your injuries and bring you back. Jiang Yin put down the book in his hand and asked Zhou Wen, "You suffered such serious injuries in Dragon Gate Grotto? Who injured you?" "I don't know who injured me either. Was there anyone else nearby?" Zhou Wen was filled with puzzlement. It was one thing for Dr. Soul to explode. After all, it was an energy body, so it wouldn't leave any traces. Yin Jun was a living person. Zhou Wen had seen him explode, and his blood splattered all over the ground. It was impossible for him not to have seen it. However, from what Jiang Yin said, it didn't seem like he had seen Yin Jun's corpse. There were many people, but they were all passers-by. "I didn't find anyone who injured you," Jiang Yin answered with certainty. With that said, Jiang Yin got up and walked to the side. He picked up a bowl and walked in front of Zhou Wen. "This is the medicine that Counselor brewed before he left. He instructed me to feed you when you woke up. Not a single drop is to be left. This is one of my missions today." With that said, Jiang Yin picked up a spoon and scooped a spoonful of medicine to Zhou Wen's mouth. "I'll do it myself." Zhou Wen struggled to sit up, but his body was extremely sore. It was limp as though he had no strength. "Didn't I already tell you that Counselor has just treated your injuries? Your body still needs to recover. Don't move around and don't hinder me from completing my mission," Jiang Yin said as he brought the spoon to Zhou Wen's mouth. Zhou Wen knew that his body couldn't take it, so he had no choice but to open his mouth and drink the spoonful of medicine. He found it extremely bitter, but he didn't know what it tasted like. "What medicine is this?" Zhou Wen couldn't help but frown. "It's self-made medicine from Counselor. It should be of some use," Jiang Yin said indifferently. Jiang Yin fed Zhou Wen spoonful by spoonful. After about 10 minutes, he finished feeding him the huge bowl of medicine. The medicine was just too bitter, making Zhou Wen feel bitter from his mouth to his intestines. He couldn't taste anything else. Rest. Don't move around. Counselor said that you can only get out of bed in 2 days. If you don't want to be treated again, lie down obediently, Jiang Yin said. Although Zhou Wen was weak, he could still move his limbs, but he didn't have much strength. He pulled open the blanket and realized that he was only wearing his underwear. He was immediately alarmed. Just as he was about to ask Jiang Yin if he had seen his phone, he turned his head and saw his clothes neatly stacked by the bed. 2 phones and some miscellaneous items were placed on them. The bracelet was also there. Zhou Wen immediately heaved a sigh of relief and reached out to take the mysterious phone. There was no problem switching it on. Zhou Wen opened the phone's interface and was slightly taken aback. The other programs on the phone's desktop were normal, but there was an additional number 1 beside the dead man tree icon. Chapter 178. Zhou Wen was puzzled as he tapped on the dead man tree icon. Soon, an image of the dead man tree appeared on his phone. However, at that moment, the dead man tree had already turned white. In between the white leaves, there was a white flower bud. How can this be? Zhou Wen was alarmed. After looking at it for a while, he couldn't tell anything. The flower bud was still small, and there was nothing special about it. However, the appearance of the flower bud made Zhou Wen think of Yin Zhen's corpse. Yin Zhen was indeed dead, but no one had discovered his corpse. Now that another flower bud had bloomed on the dead man tree, it was hard not to make connections. It can't be. Could it be that the dead man tree in-game can suck the dead in reality? Zhou Wen couldn't help but frown when he thought of this. If the dead man tree in-game still had an influence on reality, wouldn't it be very dangerous for him to carry a dead man tree with him all day? No one knew how much influence the dead man tree had. If the people around him were also affected by the dead man tree, it would be even more troublesome. Zhou Wen thought of his life providence and felt his head ache even more. He had never heard of anyone being unable to withstand the power of their life providence. In theory, this was an impossible situation. This was because the life providence was born from Zhou Wen's own body. The power of the life providence couldn't exceed what Zhou Wen could withstand. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to be born. However, Zhou Wen's life providence had exceeded what he could withstand. I'm probably the first person in history to nearly collapse my body after using a life providence once. Zhou Wen mocked himself inwardly. However, Zhou Wen vaguely felt that his life providence's abnormality was very likely related to the lost Immortal Sutra. When he advanced to the legendary stage, he had once had an illusion where he vaguely saw a woman. And the woman's voice was similar to the whispers of the devil when he was bedridden every day. When he used the sigh of the king, Zhou Wen felt that the shadow on his body seemed to resemble a woman's. However, Zhou Wen wasn't sure because he had only seen a blurry shadow. Furthermore, he had only seen a portion of it. Without a mirror, he couldn't see his complete body, so naturally, he couldn't see the complete shadow. Jiang Yin fed him the medicine 3 times a day, leaving him in excruciating pain. He felt like he had turned into a bitter gourd that was about to be pickled. It was as though even his flesh and blood were emitting a bitter taste. At night, Wang Mingyuan and Zhong Zia climbed out of Dragon's Well. It was unknown what they were studying down there. Hui Haifeng had left the laboratory for something and didn't return today. Wang Mingyuan checked Zhou Wen's body again before saying, "Your injuries are no longer a problem. You can get out of bed in another 2 days, but you still can't do any intense exercise. You will need at least half a month before you can begin practicing your palm arts again." To Zhou Wen's surprise, Wang Mingyuan didn't ask him how he was injured, rendering the excuse he had prepared useless. As he couldn't get out of bed, all he could do was lie in bed and game. Thankfully, his injuries didn't affect the blood-colored avatar. It wasn't a problem for him to grind in-game. "I say, Zhou Wen, I really couldn't tell. You usually keep quiet, but you're so ruthless when it comes to fighting." Zhong Ziki placed the bowl of porridge cooked by Wang Mingyuan on the chair beside Zhou Wen's bed. He smiled at Zhou Wen and continued, Tell me, who beat you up like this? I'll avenge you later. I really don't know who that person was. I was ambushed as I was walking. I fainted without seeing anyone. Zhou felt weak all over and found it difficult to sit up. All he could do was flip over and lie on the bed to eat the porridge. All right, don't put in so much effort. Zhongzia picked up the porridge again and fed it to Zhou with a spoon. You're really useless. You can't even see who your enemy is. You're really embarrassing us. Don't tell others that you're teacher's disciple. Zhou knew that Zhongzia was only joking, so he didn't take it to heart. He changed the topic and said, I heard that teacher has another disciple. What's that senior's name? How's he now? That senior? His name is Lu Yun. You should have heard of his name, right? He's the same as you. He entered Sunset College from Guide High School. Zhongzia said with an odd expression. Senior Lu Yun? Zhou was slightly taken aback. Zhou had heard of this name before. Before Zhou, Guide High School had produced a few geniuses. The most famous one was a student named Lu Yun. It was said that he had received similar treatment as Zhou in the past. He was the pride of Guide High School, and he was the top scorer in the city's college entrance examination. However, Lu Yun was several years ahead of Zhou. When Zhou was in high school, Lu Yun had long graduated. They had never met. Zhou never expected Lu Yun to be Wang Mingyuan's disciple. Unfortunately, Zhou came too late. Lu Yun had already graduated a year ago. Zhongzia didn't seem to wish to chat with Zhou about Lu Yun. After feeding him, he yawned and returned to his bed to sleep. Zhou was truly bored lying down. All he could do was continue gaming on his phone. When he reached Tiger Cage Pass, he encountered a paper demonized general again. Zhou was no longer as excited when he saw the paper demonized general. He had seen it many times in the past, but none of them had dropped a companion egg. Zhou originally imagined that he wouldn't gain anything this time, but after he killed the paper demonized general, he saw a black and red companion egg drop. Zhou found it unbelievable that he had really dropped a paper demonized general companion egg. After being taken aback for a moment, he got the blood-colored avatar to pick it up. He took a look at the paper demonized general stats. It was similar to the two demonized generals from before. Even their life providences were the same, but its skill was astral suction palm. Looking at the compatibility between the paper demonized general and the mutated demonized general, he realized that it wasn't as high as the two demonized generals from before. It was only about 54%, which was basically equivalent to a 50% chance. The chances weren't high, but after some hesitation, Zhou chose to fuse them. He had plenty of chances to have the mutated demonized general drop in the future. Even if he failed this time, there would still be chances in the future. With Zhou's choice, the companion egg transformed into a beam of light and entered the mutated demonized general's body. Then, the mutated demonized general's body shimmered, filling the entire screen. Fusion successful. Obtained mutated demonized general. The light dissipated, and a mutated demonized general's figure appeared on the screen. It had a red horse, red armor, and a red crown on its head. It held a blood-colored spear in its hand, but its body emitted a strange black flame. Mutated demonized general. Legendary life providence. Cursed general strength. 19 speed. 19 constitution. 19 primordial energy. 19 talent skill. Astral/blade. Astral fist. Astral suction palm. Demon flame spear. Demon rider summon. After successfully fusing again, the mutated demonized general stats were already comparable to rebellious knights. Furthermore, it had 5 skills that broke through the limit. At the legendary stage, apart from mythical pets, it was considered the strongest existence. Zhou hadn't hatched the rebellious knight companion egg because he had some concerns. Chapter 179. For an excellent grade companion egg like Rebellious Knight, unless one had advanced to the epic stage and had no need for a legendary companion egg, the typical person would choose to hatch it. However, Hearted F ran around with the Rebellious Knight companion egg without incubating it. This left Zhou puzzled. Therefore, after obtaining Rebellious Knight, Zhou carefully studied all its stats, including its life providence. Then, Zhou discovered the problem. Rebellious Knight's life providence was Knight of Destiny. This life providence didn't seem to be a problem, but the introduction was very thought-provoking. Knight of Destiny, a knight destined by the heavens, an eternal protagonist. A companion beast with the life providence of a protagonist was clearly not a good thing. At the very least, Hardadef definitely believed so. Otherwise, there was no reason for him not to incubate Rebellious Knight. Connecting it to the life experiences of the Knight of the Round Table corresponding to Rebellious Knight, Zhou was even more certain that his guess was correct. The reason Hardadef had incubated Holy Spear Knight and not Rebellious Knight was definitely because he had the same qualms as Zhou. That Knight of the Round Table was once the strongest knight under King Arthur. He had created a glorious era with King Arthur. However, it was also because of him that the Knights of the Round Table fell apart. King Arthur also died an unnatural death, causing the curtain to fall on the legend. No matter how great the legend and novel made this knight out to be, it couldn't erase his betrayal and selfishness. Just like the famous General Lu Bu in the East District, he was a role model who destroyed an era because of a woman. Although there was no need to worry about Rebellious Knight's betrayal with a human contract, it wasn't a good thing to have such an ominous companion beast by his side. The main problem lies in him and the life providence. If I can get rid of the useless and jinx life providence of the Knight of Destiny, there shouldn't be too much of a problem, Zhou thought. Hardadef couldn't resolve this problem, but it wasn't an unresolvable problem for Zhou. The mysterious phone had the function of fusing companion beasts. As long as he fused Rebellious Knight with other companion beasts, he could resolve the problem of the life providence. Without a doubt, the best choice was to fuse with the mutated demonized general. Both of them were companion beasts with mounts, so the chances of a successful fusion should be higher. However, Zhou had previously seen the fusion contract between the mutated demonized general and Rebellious Knight. It was only a pathetic 23%. Even Zhou didn't dare risk such a chance. There was almost no chance of success. Now that the mutated demonized general had undergone another fusion, Zhou looked at its compatibility with Rebellious Knight again. It was even lower, with only 11% left. It seems that after a pet fuses once, the compatibility will greatly decrease when it fuses again. After multiple fuses, the compatibility will decrease even more. Zhou naturally couldn't choose to let Rebellious Knight fuse with the mutated demonized general. Therefore, Zhou still hadn't hatched Rebellious Knight. While recuperating from his injuries, he gamed and grinded. While grinding the three-eyed golden warrior, he even obtained a 19-valued constitution crystal, raising his constitution to 19 points. Previously, Zhou had heard from the Wu siblings that after gathering the 3 primordial energy skills, Astral Suction Palm, Astral Fist, and Astral Slash Blade, it was possible to destroy the arrow that shot from Tiger Gate Pass. However, the mutated demonized general already had 3 skills, yet it still couldn't dodge the might of the arrow. Therefore, Zhou didn't believe what he had previously eavesdropped. However, Zhou still grinded Tiger Cage Pass every time, hoping that the Astral Fist primordial energy skill crystal would drop. Even if he couldn't destroy the arrow, Astral Fist was still an extremely powerful primordial energy skill. Ding! A companion egg dropped after casually cleaving a soldier to death. It left Zhou somewhat surprised. However, it was only an ordinary mortal stage soldier. Even if a companion egg dropped, it was useless. However, when he looked at the system notification, Zhou was alarmed. The mortal companion egg's attributes were very ordinary, but it had a 97% compatibility with Rebellious Knight. It can't be? Why is this soldier's companion egg so compatible with Rebellious Knight? Zhou carefully looked at the stats of the soldier's companion egg. Saber Shield Soldier, Mortal Stage Strength, 8 Speed, 6 Constitution, 7 Primordial Energy, 3 Talent Skill, none Companion Form. None. It was a trashy mortal companion beast with ordinary attributes. It didn't even have a talent skill, nor could it transform into a companion form. It could be said to be trash at the mortal stage. However, it was such a trashy companion beast that had such a high compatibility with rebellious night. This surprised Zhou. With a thought, Zhou got the blood-colored avatar to hatch the saber shield soldier. Its attributes were identical to before it hatched. It was a trashy pet. Then, Zhou made an extremely bold decision. He used the rebellious knight companion egg as a supplementary material to fuse with the saber shield soldier. The main reason was that Zhou wasn't willing to contract a rebellious knight with a problematic life providence. There was no point in keeping it. Since there was such a high success rate, he decided to give the fusion a try. Zhou didn't have much hope, but when the fusion was completed, the stats gave him a fright. Saber Shield Knight, Legendary Life Providence, Offense and Defense Strength, 19 Speed, 19 Constitution, 19 Primordial Energy, 19 Talent Skill, Reverse Cross Sword, Shield of Finality, Paladin Summoning, Paladin Battle or Companion Form. The present Saber Shield Knight was completely different from the previous Saber Shield Soldier. He was dressed in armor and rode on a black horse. With a saber in one hand and a shield in the other, he looked extremely majestic. Most importantly, he had inherited the 4 talent skills of Rebellious Knight. His abilities weren't much weaker than the mutated demonized general with 3 skills. Zhou was delighted. Not only had this fusion resolved the problem of his life providence, but it had also allowed him to have another legendary fighter. Now that I have the mutated demonized general and Saber Shield Knight, I might be able to form a large cavalry unit if I get some cavalry companion beasts in the future. Zhou glanced at the compatibility between Saber Shield Knight and a mutated demonized general. It was 49%. After hesitating for a while, Zhou gave up on the fusion, not daring to take the risk. It was rare for him to recuperate for a few days. Zhou had a rather pleasant time, but on the 7th day, the white flower on the dead man tree had completely bloomed and its petals withered. After the flower withered, a white fruit grew out. Inside the fruit, Zhou vaguely saw a blob of light. It looked somewhat familiar, but also unfamiliar. Chapter 180. Zhou was puzzled as he stared at the fruit for a while, but he failed to resolve his doubts. With the passage of time, the fruit grew larger and larger. The originally crystalline shell gradually became thick and hard, resembling an eggshell. Don't tell me the fruit on the dead man tree is a companion egg? After 2 days, the more Zhou looked at the fruit, the more it looked like a white companion egg. He really didn't know how to describe his feelings. If the dead man tree can really produce companion eggs, were the companion beasts inside the companion eggs? Yinjun? Or is it his life soul, Dr. Soul? Zhou could only make such a guess. Without knowing when the fruit would ripen, Zhou could only slowly pay attention to its growth. He would usually grind dungeons and grind monsters. He had died countless times at the hands of the golden flying ant, but Zhou failed to touch the white cocoon the golden flying ant was guarding. This left him somewhat depressed. From the looks of it, I still have to think of a way to obtain the sun-chasing movement technique. With absolute speed, I should have a chance of circling around the golden flying ant and touching the cocoon. Zhou could already get out of bed, so he decided to make another trip to Sunset City and take a look at the situation outside. Although Yinjun wasn't a member of the military, he was still a forensic doctor. It was impossible for no one to investigate the disappearance of a forensic doctor who had a significant relationship with the military. Your body hasn't recovered. It will be very troublesome if you get injured again. Let Zia accompany you. Wang Mingyuan got Zhong Zia to accompany Zhou to Sunset City. Zhong Zia was originally unwilling. As Zhou was injured, he had no choice but to pull the chains. Now, he had to accompany Zhou to Sunset City. He was naturally unwilling. It was unknown what Wang Mingyuan said to Zhong Zia, but in the end, Zhong Zia agreed to accompany him. However, when Zhou saw the sun-chasing bird, he didn't even have time to consider it. He gave up the thought of hunting it. What Zhou could see with his naked eye was a black dot streaking across the sky. At that height and flying speed, even if Zhou used the God Fiend's qualified levitation ability, it was impossible for him to catch up. Furthermore, the sun-chasing bird didn't land at all. It was a dimensional creature that forever flew in the sky. This was the first time Zhou had seen Sunset City. The ancient city floated in the clouds like a mirage. It seemed extremely close, but at the same time, so far that it couldn't be touched. Zhongzia looked at Sunset City amidst the clouds and said, "Because it can only be seen when the rays of the setting sun appear, this city is named after the setting sun." The word setting sun in Sunset College refers to Sunset City. Later on, the meaning attached to the word sunset was added by later generations. Has no one been able to enter Sunset City? Zhou asked curiously. How do we get in? Zhongzia curled his lips and said, "Do you see those sun-chasing birds? They have been chasing after Sunset City for their entire lives and have never landed on the ground. However, they have never been able to fly into Sunset City. Who else do you think can enter Sunset City? Right? Why do you want to kill the sun-chasing bird?" The difficulty of killing a sun-chasing bird is probably even greater than killing an ordinary epic creature. The main problem is that you might not even be able to catch up to it, Zhongzia said. I need a movement technique that's faster than Dragon Gate fairy skill. That's why I want to kill the sun-chasing bird, Zhou said. If that's the case, there's no need to kill the sun-chasing bird. Do you know Dragon Gate Grotto's Lotus Flower Cave? There's an epic dimensional creature called Fairy there. If you kill a fairy, you might drop the Dragon Gate Flying Immortal skill. That's an upgraded version of the Dragon Gate Fairy skill. It's faster, stronger, and more agile. It's much better than the sun-chasing movement technique, Zhongzia said. Zhou said with a bitter smile, I do want to, but I'm no match for a fairy. It's more like killing a fairy monkey. Zhou was speaking the truth. Back when he went to Lotus Flower Cave, he had encountered a fairy and was instantly killed. Although he was much stronger now, it wasn't easy to kill a fairy. Zhongzia immediately laughed when he heard Zhou say that. Isn't that easy? As long as you are sincere enough, call Hui Haifeng and Jiang Yan. With the three of us helping you, there's no need to worry about not being able to kill a fairy. It's not good to trouble everyone, right? Zhou said hesitantly. What's there to trouble? I believe those two fellows are bored staying in the laboratory all day. They'll definitely be willing to accompany you to Lotus Flower Cave. Zhongzia thought for a moment and said, however, that fairy is an epic creature after all. It's better to plan before taking action. We can discuss it when we get back. As Zhongzia spoke to himself, he didn't care if Zhou really wanted his help. He rode his electric scooter back to the laboratory. After meeting Hui Haifeng and Jiang Yan, Zhongzia told them about helping Zhou hunt the fairies. Hui Haifeng and Jiang Yan agreed readily, without even mentioning any conditions. Then it's settled. I'll head to Lotus Flower Cave to test the fairy's strength. When Zhou recovers, we'll kill her together, Zhongzia said as he left the laboratory, not giving Zhou a chance to stop him. Will he be in danger if he goes like this? Zhou asked worriedly. He was a person who didn't like owing favors. If Zhongzia were to perish in Lotus Flower Cave, because of him, Zhou really didn't know how he could return the favor. To his surprise, Hui Haifeng curled his lips and said, Don't worry. Ignoring a fairy, even a more powerful epic creature won't be able to kill that fellow. He will at most suffer a little. Zhou was somewhat puzzled, unsure why Hui Haifeng was so sure. Jiang Yan also said, Zhongzia's life is very tough. He has 9 lives like a cat. He won't die. Seeing that the two of them were so certain, Zhou didn't say anything else, but he was still somewhat worried. At night, Zhongzia came back from outside. His clothes were tattered, and he looked like he had experienced a fierce battle. However, there was no blood on his body. Under the tattered clothes, there was perfect skin. After Zhongzia returned, he fell asleep without a word. Zhou didn't have the chance to ask him what had happened. Every second morning, when Zhou woke up, Zhongzia was nowhere to be seen. At night, he would see him return in tattered clothes. This continued for several days. On the 4th day, Zhongzia's clothes weren't torn at all. He returned intact. It's done. Once Zhou recovers, will hunt fairies. Zhongzia didn't fall asleep the moment he returned. Instead, he said languidly. Zhou had previously thought that they were just joking, but he never expected them to be that bold. In just a few days, when Zhou's injuries were almost healed, they really dragged him to Lotus Flower Cave. Chapter 181. Are you confident of killing a fairy? Zhou followed them to Lotus Flower Cave. No, Hui Haifeng answered. Although Jiang Yin and Zhong Zia didn't answer, it was obvious from their expressions that they weren't confident either. Isn't it too risky for you to kill a fairy when you don't have any confidence? Zhou looked at the trio, speechlessly. Hui Haifeng said with a smile, if it's something that can be done with certainty, what's the fun in it? It's only interesting when you aren't confident. What kind of theory is that? Zhou was even more speechless. This was gambling with one's life. He didn't think it was fun. Zhong Zia curled his lips and said, although Hui Haifeng isn't completely right, he's not wrong. If it's something that others can do, why would we need to do it? What about you? Zhou looked at Jiang Yin. Counselor told me to watch you. If you go, I can only follow, Jiang Yin said indifferently. Zhou looked at the trio and was momentarily at a loss for words. He increasingly felt that none of Wang Mingyuan's students were normal. He originally thought that Hui Haifeng was rather normal, but for what he saw today, he realized that he was wrong. Apart from Zhou, there wasn't a single normal person here. Teacher is such a gentle person. How'd he teach such a bunch of strange fellows? Zhou originally wanted to say that he wasn't going, but the trio had already walked far away. Forget it. Zhou sighed and shook his head. All he could do was follow. Zhou wasn't completely lacking in confidence. In the past, he wasn't a match for a fairy, but now, he was much stronger. Although he wasn't enough to fight an epic fairy, he still had some confidence in staying alive. Previously, when he was grinding Lotus Flower Cave, he would occasionally encounter fairies. It wasn't difficult for him to escape. Soon, the four of them arrived at Lotus Flower Cave. Not long after entering, they encountered a fairy monkey. Before Jiang Yin and Zhong Ziki could take action, Hui Haifeng pushed Zhou out. You've been recuperating for so long. Let's warm up first so that you don't get nervous cramps when you encounter the fairies. I won't either, Zhou lampooned inwardly, but he had no choice but to face the fairy monkey. He had lost count of the number of fairy monkeys he had killed in-game. He knew every move of a fairy monkey like the back of his hand. When he saw the fairy monkey flap its wings and charge at him with its claws shimmering with a terrifying glow, he didn't panic in the slightest. At the instant the fairy monkey pounced at him, he took a step forward and leaped with all his might, brushing past the fairy monkey. Bang! Zhou struck the back of the fairy monkey's head with his palm. The fairy monkey didn't even have the chance to let out a tragic cry as it plummeted from the sky. After twitching twice, it fell silent. Beautiful! Hui Haifeng couldn't help but praise. Jiang Yin was also slightly surprised, but Zhong Zia curled his lips and said, not bad. I didn't waste all that time practicing the palm technique. I didn't embarrass teacher. After encountering a few fairy monkeys in a row, no one was willing to take action. All Zhou could do was hunt them himself, treating it as practice for his 7 distribution palm. Zhong Zia led the way and passed through more than 10 stone caves. Suddenly, he saw a fairy-like creature charge at them with fluttering ribbons. Zhou recognized it at a glance. It was the fairy of Lotus Flower Cave, an epic dimensional creature. However, on careful look, Zhou's expression changed drastically. He had seen quite a number of fairies, but they were all dressed in colorful clothes with ribbons wrapped around them. However, this fairy was different. She was dressed in black, but the ribbons fluttering around her were pure white. She was very different from the fairies Zhou had seen before. No good. It's a mutated fairy. Zhong Zia was somewhat surprised as well, but he had no intention of retreating. He took out a gun and aimed it at the fairy, firing 3 consecutive shots. The bullets instantly arrived in front of the fairy, but she didn't move at all. The pure white ribbons seemed to have a life of their own as they danced around her body, deflecting the 3 bullets. The bullets made of essence gold failed to damage the ribbons at all. Run! Zhong Zia saw that the 3 bullets were useless, so he immediately turned around and ran. His movements were clean and smooth, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. Just as Zhou started running, he saw Qin Yin and Hui Haifeng running faster and faster. They almost started at the same time as Zhong Zia, but Zhou was the slowest. However, even Zhong Zia, who was running in front, failed to rush out of the cave. Just as he was about to enter the neighboring cave, he saw his surroundings suddenly turn pitch black. Instantly, he couldn't see anything. Zhong Zia leaped up, hoping to rush out of the cave in the darkness based on his previous intuition. However, when he jumped, it was as if he had hit an iron plate. With a loud bang, Zhong Zia's face was almost flattened. His whole body was shaken and fell back, blood flowing from his nose. Zhou didn't know if Hui Haifeng and Jiang Yin could see it, but he could see it clearly with the Truth Listener Earring's ability. As for the fairy in the sky, a black sun rose behind her. The black sun emitted a black light, and it was its light that enveloped the entire cave, forming a dark space. Is it the fairy's life soul? Zhou had seen fairies a few times, but he had never seen them use their life souls. He didn't know if ordinary fairy life souls were the same as the mutated fairy. Zhou was just about to warn Jiang Yin and Hui Haifeng to be careful when the ribbon on the mutated fairy's body swept over like a jade WIRM. Its target was Zhou. Just as Zhou was about to fight, he suddenly saw Jiang Yan's figure flash and stand in front of him. At the same time, a slender sword appeared in his hand. The sword was at most a finger's width and thinner than paper. It was almost transparent. The sword in Jiang Yan's hand produced a purple sword beam as it accurately slashed at the ribbon. The sword beam failed to sever the ribbon and was instead wrapped around the sword. The fairy pulled with her jade-like hand and the white ribbon tightened. The sword in Jiang Yan's hand immediately cracked into several pieces. Jiang Yan abandoned his sword and retreated in time to avoid being sliced apart by the ribbon. Zhong Zia leaped up from the ground and held a pistol in each hand. He fired at the mutated fairy, but unfortunately, all the essence gold bullets were blocked by the spinning ribbon. They failed to injure the fairy at all. Why am I so unlucky? Zhou knew that if he couldn't kill the mutated fairy today, the few of them would probably die. Without any hesitation, he took the opportunity while the fairy was blocking the bullets to summon the grading fan. He leaped into the air and charged at the mutated fairy. On the other side, Hui Haifeng and Jiang Yin seemed to have a telepathic connection as they charged at the mutated fairy together. Clearly, they had the same thoughts. Chapter 182. He fanned the banana fan at the mutated fairy, causing the grand Yin wind to sweep out. The mutated fairy's figure fluttered as though she was riding the wind. Instead, the grand Yin wind aided her. However, a thin layer of frost appeared on her body. However, the cold wasn't enough to freeze her. It only affected her agility to a certain extent. Zhou knew that this was because Banana Fairy's level was too low. If Banana Fairy was also at the epic stage, this fan would probably be able to freeze the mutated fairy in midair. It would be useless even if she had the ability to ride the wind. However, the mutated fairy's agility was affected as she flew with the wind. Her trajectory was much easier to predict. Jiang Yin held a translucent whip that was neither gold nor jade in his hand. It looked like a weapon made of the tendons of a certain creature. He swung it at the mutated fairy, and the translucent whip predicted the mutated fairy's trajectory as it wrapped around her ankle. Jiang Yin pulled the whip with all his might, but the mutated fairy's strength was too strong. It sent him flying with it. Jiang Yin didn't let go of the whip as he continued holding it tightly. It was like an iron pendant, causing the mutated fairy's speed to slow down significantly. The ribbon on the mutated fairy's body fluttered as it swept towards Jiang Yin like a WIRM. If he was caught by the ribbon, his body would probably be torn into pieces. Hui Haifeng had already rushed in front of the mutated fairy. His arm, which was wrapped in a metal bracer, erupted like a volcano as it emitted a powerful stream of light that blasted at the mutated fairy's body. Due to the freezing in Jiang Yin, The mutated fairy's movements were greatly affected. She couldn't dodge the punch, but she didn't panic. She waved her hand gently and blocked Hui Haifeng's fist. Bam! Hui Haifeng flew out as though he had been struck by a hammer. He slammed into the stone wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as the ribbon was about to engulf Jiang Yan, he held the whip with both hands as his body swayed, dodging the ribbon a few times. However, that was all. The ribbon was about to wrap around his body. A sword beam flashed. At some point in time, Zhong Zia had held a sword and slashed at the ribbon. The sword beam was abnormally sharp. Although the sword beam immediately shattered when it struck the ribbon and Zhong Zia was sent flying, it changed the ribbon's trajectory, giving Jiang Yin room to dodge. Jiang Yin kept holding onto the whip. After dodging twice, the ribbon was about to wrap around his body again. Zhou also noticed something amiss. Jiang Yan's whip seemed to have some special use, which was why he refused to let go. Without any hesitation, when he soared into the sky, he fanned the banana fan in his hand to the mutated fairy again, blowing the mutated fairy's body to the side. The ribbons also changed their trajectory. However, this time, the mutated fairy seemed to be prepared. As she used the wind to escape, she tapped her jade-like finger and a laser instantly arrived at Zhou Wen's chest. Zhou Wen's heart immediately chilled. The beam was too fast. With his speed, he couldn't dodge it at all. All he could do was summon the three-eyed golden warrior to block in front of him. Crack! The three-eyed golden warrior, who had a golden body, was penetrated by the white light. The white light's power didn't stop as it continued shooting forward, stabbing into Zhou Wen's flesh. Blood immediately spewed out from the wound on his shoulder. Thankfully, the three-eyed golden warrior had blocked most of the force. Furthermore, Zhou Wen had used this gap to adjust his body's position, preventing himself from being hit in any vital spots. Hui Haifeng's mouth was filled with blood, but he forcefully threw another punch at the mutated fairy. Then, Zhou Wen saw him being sent flying by the mutated fairy's palm once again. The demonic sword in Zhong Ziya's hand shimmered, but his eyes were even more demonic than the sword beam. They presented a strange blood-red color as he crazily slashed out blood-colored sword beams that attacked the mutated fairy like a storm. The mutated fairy's ribbon spun, shattering all the sword beams. Despite fighting 4 alone, she still had the absolute advantage. However, Zhou Wen didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the mutated fairy's speed had slowed down. She wasn't as fast as before, especially her hands. They seemed to be much slower, no longer as light and elegant as before. There seemed to be something heavy on her hands, making it difficult for her to move them freely. It's Hui Haifeng's punch. When Zhou Wen saw the strange mark appear on the mutated fairy's palm, he immediately thought of the 2 punches Hui Haifeng had thrown out. Without thinking carefully, Zhou Wen fanned the grand Yin wind again. This time, it wasn't aimed at the mutated fairy, but at her ribbon. It forcefully changed the trajectory of the ribbon that was sweeping towards Jiang Yan. Even so, Jiang Yan's face was still cut by the ribbon. His cheekbone was sliced open, and a thin line of blood immediately flowed out. Following that, the mutated fairy shot another beam at Jiang Yan's head. Jiang Yan had no room to dodge unless he was willing to let go of the whip in his hand. "Hold her back," Jiang Yan shouted as he grabbed the whip. "How? I won't be able to hold her back, even if I risk my life." Zhong Zia held his sword with both hands and slashed out a sword beam at the mutated fairy's beam. When the demonic blood-colored sword beam came into contact with the beam, it immediately shattered like a blood-colored firework. Zhong Zia was sent flying as well. His sword-wielding hands were covered in blood, but the beam continued shooting at Jiang Yan. Just as the beam was about to penetrate Jiang Yan's head, an invisible force suddenly pulled Jiang Yan's body to the side, allowing him to dodge the strike by a hair's breadth. Zhou Wen pulled Jiang Yan with his astral suction palm, finally saving his life in time. The 4 of them surrounded the mutated fairy, but they were riddled with injuries. This was the first time Zhou Wen had risked his life so crazily. In the past, he had only been gaming. Although he had the same feeling in-game, It was a game after all. Zhou knew that he wouldn't die, so the feeling was completely different from now. Under the true threat of death, Zhou felt his entire body in a tense and oppressive state. In such a state, an ordinary person's body would become uneasy and their movements would change. They might not even be able to use 70% to 80% of their original strength. However, the more Zhou felt under such pressure, the faster his body reacted and his thoughts became more active. The ribbons sliced through his muscles, and the sound of flesh and bones being sliced made his teeth chatter. The fear brought him pressure, but it made Zhou even more excited. He licked the blood by the corner of his mouth and watched as the fairy's hands hung low. Having just used all her strength, she could only rely on the ribbons for protection. Zhou flew through the gaps of the ribbons like a bat and swept past the fairy's head. At the same time, he struck the top of the fairy's head with his palm. This palm was invisible and silent, but when it struck the fairy's head, it made it cry out in pain. It subconsciously shot 10 beams of light from its 10 fingers at Zhou. Zhou switched his primordial energy art to the Godfiend era and relied on the Godfiend life, Providence's ability to levitate, pushing Dragon Gate fairy skill to its limits. His body distorted in midair as he dodged the terrifying beams. Chapter 183. Apart from Zhou fast and agile movement techniques, the reason why he was able to dodge the beams was because the mutated fairy's fingers were much slower than before. The mark Hui Haifeng had left on her hand was constantly taking effect, making her hands move slower and slower. Furthermore, he didn't know if it was an illusion, but Zhou felt that the mutated fairy's strength had weakened significantly. The intensity of the beams had clearly decreased. The mutated fairy was already flustered when she attacked Zhou. Hui Haifeng took the opportunity to leap up and land behind her. He repeatedly punched her, leaving 3 to 4 marks on her back. The mutated fairy turned around in a bid to kill Hui Haifeng, but her body suddenly stopped in midair. Jiang Yin had already landed on the ground at some point in time. He held the whip with both hands and forcefully pulled back the mutated fairy's body, preventing her from continuing her flight. Zhou saw Jiang Yan's body shimmer with purple light like a demonic spirit. The whip was also resplendent with purple light. It was like a blood-sucking demon that constantly trembled and sucked. Dying. Zhongzia held the sword with both hands and continuously slashed out. Blood-red sword beams slashed at the mutated fairy that Jiang Yan had pulled back. They sliced open her chiffon clothes, leaving behind bloody marks. Although the sword marks weren't deep, this was the first time Zhou and company had truly injured a mutated fairy. The mutated fairy was clearly at the end of her tether. Her movements became slower and slower, as though there was a mountain pressing down on her. Furthermore, her strength was weakening. Instead, Jiangguan's strength was increasing. Bam! Like a demon god, Jiang Yin pulled the whip in his hand and forcefully flung the mutated fairy's body out. She slammed into the stone wall, leaving a huge hole in it. The mutated fairy's mouth was also covered in blood. The sword in Zhongzia's hand slashed down as well. The blood-red sword beam slashed at the mutated fairy's head as the blade sank into her skull. A fierce glint flashed in the mutated fairy's eyes as she suddenly got up and hugged Zhongzia. A terrifying force erupted from her body. No good. She's going to self-destruct. Hui Haifeng shouted. Zhongzia struggled with all his might, but he couldn't escape. Jiang Yin pulled the whip, but all he could do was pull the mutated fairy and Zhongzia over. He couldn't separate them. Zhou wasn't far from Zhongzia and was just behind him. However, a thought arose in his mind as he charged at Zhongzia and struck him in the back. Zhou used all his strength in this strike. The ashen palm brought with it a powerful explosive force as it struck Zhongzia's back. Boom! Zhongzia's body was fine, but the mutated fairy in front of him seemed to have suffered a heavy blow to her chest. Blood spewed out of her mouth as the strength she used to hug Zhongzia weakened significantly. Zhongzia struggled with all his might and freed himself from her arms. Then, he kicked her away with all his might. Zhongzia struggled with all his might. In midair, the mutated fairy's body exploded. The terrifying black gas sent Zhou Wen, Zhongzia, Hui Haifeng, and Jiang Yin flying. Instantly, the entire cave quaked as dust rose and rubble splattered. "Are all of you all right?" Hui Haifeng crawled out of the rubble, his body covered in blood and dust. He looked like he had just crawled out of a mass grave. "I'm fine." Jiang Yin also stood up from another spot. Apart from being a little dirty, he was fine. "I'm busy." Zhongzia was sprawled on a stone statue's leg. His back was covered in rotten flesh and blood, and his injuries were indeed serious. Zhou Wen's injuries weren't light either, similar to Hui Haifeng's. "It's good that you're not dead," Jiang Yin said with a smile as he checked Zhongzia's injuries. Clearly, Zhongzia's life wasn't in danger. His injuries were just a little more serious. "Do you think that's what a human would say?" Zhongzia said weakly. "Don't talk so much. Quickly search and see if the mutated fairy dropped anything. If nothing dropped, we will have suffered all these injuries for nothing." Jiang Yin was in the best condition. He went over to rummage through the rubble, and soon he heard him say happily, "Got it. It's an essence energy skill crystal, but I wonder if it's the flying immortal skill. As long as it's there, who cares what it is? It's not a loss," Zhongzia said. Jiang Yin threw a crystal to Zhou Wen. "I wonder if it's the flying immortal skill. Go back and give it a try. However, you have to be careful. It's very dangerous to fuse a legendary essence energy skill with an epic stage essence energy skill. If you aren't confident, it's best you consult your counselor." Zhou Wen didn't stand on ceremony as he took the essence energy skill crystal and said, "Give me your account numbers. I'll transfer your share to you later. There's no need for money. I'll give you a share of whatever dimensional creature I want to kill next time," Hui Haifeng said. "Can we talk about money later? Can you send me back to teacher to treat my injuries first?" Zhongzia said with a groan. Jiang Yin carried Zhongzia on his back while Zhou Wen and Hui Haifeng supported each other out of Lotus Flower Cave. Soon, they returned to Old Dragon Cave's laboratory. When Wang Mingyuan saw the four of them, Zhou Wen and company looked like they had just lost a battle. It wasn't easy for them to escape. All of them were covered in dirt and blood. However, Wang Mingyuan didn't ask them what they had done. All he did was summon his life soul and use its power to treat their injuries. This was the first time Zhou Wen had seen Wang Mingyuan's life soul. Although Wang Mingyuan had treated him the last time, Zhou Wen had been unconscious and hadn't seen Wang Mingyuan's life soul. Wang Mingyuan's life soul was a thin-necked bottle. Although it wasn't gorgeous, it had a reserved beauty. Water-like light flowed out of the bottle. When the light touched the wound, Zhou Wen immediately felt a cooling sensation, greatly reducing the pain of the wound. As the water-like light fused into the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the bones recovered rapidly. "It's rare for the four of you to be injured together. Let's have a feast tonight to celebrate," Wang Mingyuan said to the four of them with a smile after treating their injuries. Zhou Wen recovered very quickly. Even if Wang Mingyuan didn't treat him, as long as he switched to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra, his recovery speed would be much stronger than the average person's. Therefore, while Zhongzia and Hui Haifeng were still lying on the bed, Zhou Wen and Jiang Yin had already accompanied Wang Mingyuan to have a feast to celebrate. When they were resting at night, Zhou Wen took out the mutated fairy crystal to play with. It was a bead the size of an egg. It was crystalline, and inside was a mutated fairy in black clothes and a white sash. Using his phone's camera function to look at the crystal stats, Zhou Wen couldn't help but be stunned. Mutated fairy crystal, epic. Fusion requires more than 21 speed. Buddha elemental primordial energy art. This was the first time Zhou Wen had seen a primordial energy skill that had stats requirements other than primordial energy. Furthermore, it had requirements for primordial energy arts. This had never been taught in school. Chapter 184. Zhou Wen's current speed was only 18, still quite a distance away from 21. The last 3 points were especially difficult to raise. Apart from grinding monsters to obtain high-level crystals, Zhou didn't have any particularly good methods. I can only give it a try and see if I can use the mysterious phone to bring the skill crystal into the game. Perhaps I can refine and absorb it in-game. Zhou hid under the blanket and used the mysterious phone's camera function to take a picture of the mutated fairy crystal. However, a system notification popped up on the phone. Stats haven't met the skill crystal's requirements. Unable to refine and absorb. Do you want to continue? Zhou hurriedly chose no. If he couldn't refine and absorb it in-game, and there was no storage equipment in-game, the crystal would be refreshed with the blood-colored avatar's death. He might as well leave it in the real world. I can't refine and absorb it in-game if I don't meet the stats requirements? Zhou was somewhat depressed. It was almost impossible for a 21-point speed crystal to drop from a legendary creature. Unless Zhou killed an epic creature, it would be very difficult to obtain it. Today's experience of killing a fairy made Zhou realize how terrifying an epic creature was. If any of them had made a mistake today, all four of them might have died. As for a fairy's combat strength, it was considered inferior among epic creatures. With Zhou's strength alone, it would probably be difficult for him to succeed, even with the help of a companion beast. As for the Buddha Elemental Primordial Energy Arts requirements, it wasn't difficult for Zhou. All he needed to do was switch his Primordial Energy Art to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra to meet the requirements. He looked at the blood-colored avatar stats again, but nothing else changed. Only Ashen Palm had gone from the mortal stage to the legendary stage. Furthermore, it was still at rank 10. Zhou wasn't surprised that Ashen Palm had advanced from the mortal stage to the legendary stage. He had already sensed it during the battle. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to deliver the palm strike that had saved Zhongzia. However, he never expected that Ashen Palm would reach rank 10 after advancing to the legendary stage. After some thought, Zhou realized that it was indeed too difficult to obtain a 21-point speed crystal from a legendary creature. He might as well kill an epic creature. However, with his strength alone, it was impossible for him to kill an epic creature in-game. However, today's battle with Qin Yin and company made Zhou understand something. In the game, he was alone. There were many things he couldn't do, but in the real world, there were many powerful humans like Qin Yin, Zhongzia, and Hui Haifeng. As long as he cooperated well, he could do many things he couldn't do in-game. Zhou planned on killing epic creatures in reality, but before that, he needed to find some powerful helpers. For example, Li Xian, Wang Lu, and Feng Xuyan were all extremely powerful legendaries. If he could obtain their help, he definitely wouldn't be able to kill high-level epic creatures, but he still had a chance of killing low-level epic creatures. Of course, Zhou wouldn't risk his life, much less the lives of Li Xian and company. Therefore, he began grinding crazily. The dungeon this time was different from before. This time, Zhou specially found dungeons on campus to grind. Furthermore, they were all dungeons with epic creatures. The one he frequented the most was naturally Dragon Gate Grotto. In some caves, there were epic creatures. Zhou attempted to hunt them one by one. The outcome was naturally death again and again. When encountering powerful epic creatures, the blood-colored avatar would be instantly killed. When encountering weaker epic creatures, he could last a little longer, but that was all. It was impossible for him to kill those epic creatures. The most powerful thing about epic creatures was that they had life souls. Life souls had all sorts of abilities. Those abilities weren't limited by primordial energy and could be constantly activated. The stronger life souls could instantly kill the blood-colored avatar and the group of pets. The weaker life souls had their own characteristics and had all sorts of magical powers. Zhou experimented again and again in order to find an epic creature that he could kill. Then, he came up with a perfect plan. He wanted to find a few strong helpers to kill epic creatures with him without taking any risks. Time passed as the blood-colored avatar constantly died. As he had probed too many times, and most of them were instantly killed, Zhou had dripped too much blood. He felt like he was beginning to suffer from anemia again. Yinzhen's disappearance didn't seem to cause too much of a stir. Although the police came to the school to investigate, they only went through the process. No one suspected that Yin Jun had died in school. This made Zhou heave a sigh of relief. However, on second thought, he understood why no one suspected that Yin Jun had died in school. This was because no one knew that he had come to school. Yin Jun's visit to Zhou, to dissect him, was a shameful matter to begin with. He must have made preparations beforehand to not let anyone know that he had come to school, much less let others know that he had come to Zhou. Upon thinking of Yin Jun, Zhou looked at the fruit on the dead man tree. At that moment, the fruit was already the size of papaya. Its shell was white and shiny, making it look like an egg no matter how he looked at it. When the fruit on the tree reached the 7th day, it automatically fell from the tree. Zhou got the blood-colored avatar to pick it up, and indeed, it was a companion egg. Dr. Darkness, Epic Life Providence, Golden Left Hand Life Soul, Dr. Soul Strength, 21 Speed, 37 Constitution, 26 Primordial Energy, 38 Talent Skill, Scalpel, Fight Poison with Poison, Light of Penetration Companion Form. None after looking at the companion egg's information, Zhou couldn't help but find it odd. Dr. Darkness was clearly a replica of Yin Jun. Could it be that the dead man tree's ability is to turn dead people into companion beasts? Then, does Dr. Darkness have Yin Jun's memories? Zhou was momentarily hesitant, unsure of how to deal with the companion egg. Incubating an epic companion egg required too much primordial energy. According to Zhou's previous experience, he should be able to incubate an epic companion egg by using a bug in-game. However, there was a high chance that Dr. Darkness would be demoted or the incubation wouldn't be complete. However, if he didn't incubate it, Zhou was afraid that the companion egg would vanish after being refreshed in-game. Another point was that if Dr. Darkness still had Yin Jun's memories, would he rebel? This was something no one could guarantee. After some thought, Zhou chose to incubate Dr. Darkness. Gritting his teeth, he infused his primordial energy into the companion egg. At the same time the companion egg was activated, Zhou felt all his primordial energy surge towards the companion egg like a flood. In a blink of an eye, all his primordial energy was drained. The blood-colored avatar exploded in-game. Due to the lack of primordial energy, the companion egg sucked the blood-colored avatar dry of its vitality. Chapter 185. The blood-colored avatar exploded and died as the game screen automatically turned black. Zhou dripped his blood to revive, and when he entered the game again, he saw an additional Dr. Darkness in his companion beast column. When he looked at Dr. Darkness's stats, he realized that he had fallen to the legendary stage. Dr. Darkness, Legendary, Youngling, Life Providence, Golden Left Hand Speed, 18 Strength, 12 Constitution, 13 Primordial Energy, 18 Talent Skill, Scalpel, Fight Poison with Poison, Light of Penetration Companion Form. None it was considered a good companion beast at the legendary stage, but that was all. After he evolved into a mature body, he might be able to return to the epic stage, but that would require a lot of time to feed. Zhou glanced at Dr. Darkness's in-game appearance and imagined that he would look very similar to Yin Jun, but he realized that Dr. Darkness wasn't Yin Jun. Dr. Darkness wore a doctor's white robe, but he wasn't a person, but a humanoid puppet. He wasn't really made of flesh and blood. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. If Dr. Darkness really looked like Yin Jun, he really wouldn't be able to accept it. After testing a few of Dr. Darkness's skills in-game, he realized that this fellow was actually a support-type pet. He was rather good at performing surgeries, but his true combat strength was inferior to a three-eyed golden warrior of the same level. However, if it was used for surgery, Dr. Darkness was definitely a top-notch companion beast. If a doctor had this companion beast, there was a high chance that they would become a famous doctor. The scalpel skill could make precise cuts, with an error that was accurate to 3 decimal places. Fight Poison with Poison used poison to stimulate a living body, allowing the living body's vitality to erupt in order to survive the most dangerous stage of surgery. It could even suppress a portion of the virus. Light of Penetration could be used to see through a patient's body. It was much better than X-rays or MRI scans. However, Zhou didn't know any medical skills. It would be a waste to give him such an impressive medical companion beast. He didn't know how to use it at all. Don't tell me I have to learn medical skills first. Zhou was somewhat depressed, but on second thought, it wasn't completely useless. Dr. Darkness was rather useful when dealing with external injuries on the battlefield. When he returned to the epic stage in the future, the Dr. Soul Life Soul would likely be very helpful in battle. If I can make Dr. Darkness return to the epic stage, it'll be much easier for me to kill epic creatures. However, I wonder how long it will take to make him return to the epic stage. Zhou was very optimistic as he went to Ant City to grind a few companion eggs for Dr. Darkness. As the days passed, Ouyang Lan got Shang to pick him up again, saying that she had something important to discuss with him. Little one, what's your decision? Do you want to participate in the battle for the special constitution? Ouyang Lan paused for a moment before saying, the battle is about to begin. If you wish to participate, you can head to the Federation's sacred land in the next 2 days. Sister Lan, I don't want to go. Can you give a spot to someone else? Zhou didn't wish to vie for the special physique. With a lost immortal sutra, even if he didn't have a special physique, he could still cultivate primordial energy arts of various factions. Every spot only has one chance to change the candidate. Previously, when you change a spot to your name, you have already used up this chance. There's no way to change it again. If you don't go, this spot will be invalidated. Little Jing won't be able to go again. Ouyang Lan explained as though she had seen through Zhou thoughts. Sis Lan, I'm really not interested in that spot. If possible, you should think of something else. Zhou felt that heading to the sacred land to vie for the special physiques was a waste of time. Ouyang Lan sighed and said, since you don't wish to go, I won't force you. Let's forget about this matter. If the spot is invalidated, so be it. It's useless to us anyway. It's fine if it's useless. Although Zhou felt a little embarrassed, he wasn't the one who wanted the spot. It wasn't his fault that it was invalidated because of his rejection. Ouyang Lan didn't mention the matter again. After ordering a few dishes, the two of them chatted about family and school matters. After dinner, she got Shang to send Zhou back. Shang wasn't a talkative person, so he didn't say anything along the way. After sending Zhou out of the school, Shang suddenly said, why didn't you accept that spot? It's not a bad thing for you to have that spot. Many members of the Federation's large families want it. I just want to live my days in peace. I'm not interested in special physiques at all, Zhou said. Shang shook his head and said, young Master Wen, perhaps you don't know that the current Federation isn't as peaceful as it looks on the surface. In fact, many dimensional spaces in the Federation have been broken. Powerful dimensional creatures have rushed out of dimensional zones and entered human cities. They have carried out terrifying massacres, and many people have died. After a pause, Shang continued, perhaps in a few years, all dimensional zones will disappear. When that happens, large numbers of dimensional creatures will rush into human cities. If you don't have enough strength, you might not even be able to protect your own life, much less your family. Is the situation very bad? Zhou knew that Shang wasn't lying. In his dorm, there was a dimensional creature that refused to leave. It ate and drank like a lord every day. It's worse than most people imagine. Not long ago, a battalion of soldiers died at Little Chess Mountain, including an epic rank general. Now, Little Chess Mountain is only temporarily suppressed. The creatures inside can rush out at any time. When the time comes, the dimensional creatures that come out might be even stronger. Once the army is unable to stop those breakout creatures, the human world will immediately become a land of disaster. Shang looked into Zhou Wen's eyes in the rearview mirror and said, it's not for anyone, but for yourself to seek a chance of survival in this chaotic world. You should also make a trip to the Holy Land. What can be given to you there might allow you to survive in this chaotic world. Thank you for telling me this, but I really don't want to have anything to do with the family, much less take anything from them. Zhou said what was on his mind. Perhaps it was because Shang was born with an affinity that made Zhou feel that he could be trusted. He was willing to say things that he usually wouldn't say to others. Shang fell silent when he heard that. After a while, he sighed and said, Madam is right. Although your surname isn't in and you have no blood relationship with the overseer, your temperaments are too similar. Chapter 186. When he returned to his dorm, Zhou Wen's heart was heavy. The reality was worse than he had imagined. Even an epic officer had died in battle outside a dimensional zone. Once a large number of breakout creatures rushed into the city, Zhou Wen couldn't imagine how many humans would survive. Although he knew that danger wasn't far away, there wasn't much Zhou Wen could do. The only thing he could do was raise his strength as much as possible. If that day really came, perhaps he could use his strength to save the people he wanted to save. He glanced at the antelope sleeping on the sofa. This fellow only ate and slept all day. Ever since he came out of Mount Laojun, he hadn't done anything else. If only the dimensional creatures in dimensional zones were like it. How great would it be if they could be appeased by just giving them some food? Zhou Wen only had such a thought, knowing that it was impossible. Even if dimensional creatures didn't cause trouble for humans, their greedy nature would still plunder the treasures of dimensional creatures. Sometimes, even as a human, Zhou Wen felt that humans weren't worthy of pity. Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar and constantly launched suicidal attacks at the various epic creatures, hoping to find a pushover among them. His efforts paid off. Zhou Wen saw a glimmer of hope amidst the experience gained from a large number of deaths. It was an epic creature in Dragon Gate Grotto, but it wasn't a fairy. Instead, it was a tiger in Binyan Cave. It looked ordinary, so much so that every time Zhou Wen saw it, he imagined it to be an ordinary tiger. At most, it was at the mortal stage. However, when the tiger really moved, Zhou Wen realized how wrong he was. Without much resistance, he was swallowed by the tiger. Although he had failed miserably the first time, Zhou Wen had no choice but to make several attempts on the relatively weaker epic creatures, because he had failed miserably the first time. After fighting the tiger many times, Zhou Wen gradually discovered some of the tiger's habits and weaknesses. He was able to last longer under the tiger's attacks. After countless deaths and repeated experiments, Zhou Wen had already determined that if he had 2 or 3 sufficiently powerful helpers, killing the tiger wouldn't be difficult. He already had a detailed plan. As long as he acted according to the plan, it would not be difficult to kill the tiger. The problem now was where to find a few powerful helpers. Zhou Wen's 3 senior brothers were very strong, but they had already helped Zhou Wen once without receiving any benefits from him. He hadn't returned the favor, so it wasn't appropriate for Zhou Wen to seek their help again. After some thought, Zhou Wen called Li Xian and told him that he wanted his help in killing an epic creature. Holy *T, old Zhou, you're really something. You've shocked the world with a single brilliant feat, wanting to kill an epic rank creature. There's nothing more to say. Count me in. Li Xian agreed without any hesitation. Such trust wasn't something ordinary people could have. Zhou Wen didn't say anything else. He only told Li Xian to gather tomorrow. Some words were useless. What he did had to not disappoint him. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and gave Feng Qiuyan a call. Feng Qiuyan's saber techniques were fast and strong enough. They weren't inferior to Zhong Ziya's sword techniques, so they were a powerful aid. He explained his intention to kill an epic creature and told Feng Qiuyan that no matter what dropped, he only wanted the speed crystal. The rest would be split among them. Feng Qiuyan didn't hesitate and directly said, "Being able to fight with you is a very good learning opportunity. I don't need anything. Just let me participate in the battle." Zhou Wen felt like crying when he heard that. What a good classmate, what a kind child. If there were more people like Feng Qiuyan in the world, there wouldn't be such a thing as war. According to Zhou Wen's plan, with Li Xian and Feng Qiuyan's help, they should be able to kill the epic tiger. However, there was an old saying that man proposes but God disposes. This was his first time killing an epic creature, so Zhou Wen decided to buy insurance. Therefore, Zhou Wen called Huang Ji again and repeated what he had said to Feng Qiuyan. He also told Huang Ji that apart from the speed crystal, anything that dropped would belong to him. Zhou Wen knew that Huang Ji was as short of money as he was. As long as Huang Ji trusted him, he definitely wouldn't reject this opportunity to earn money. After all, anything dropped by an epic creature could be sold for a good price. If you had said so a day earlier, I would definitely have gone, but I'm already at the airport. I'm about to board the plane, so I definitely won't be able to go. Huang Ji said. Board the plane? Where are you going? Zhou asked in puzzlement. There's something I need to do in the Federation's Holy Land. I'm afraid I won't be able to return for some time. If you aren't in a hurry, wait for me for about 10 days, Huang Ji said. Then we'll talk about it when you come back. Zhou hung up the phone and thought for a moment before calling Wang Lu's number. He asked her if she was interested in hunting an epic creature. Of course I'm interested. How can I miss out on such an interesting thing? Wang Lu said with a smile. It looked like she was recovering well. Zhou thought to himself, if Wang Lu is turned into a companion egg by the dead man tree, I wonder what form she will take. After gathering the numbers, Zhou called them over the next morning and explained his plan and the key points to take note of in detail. Old Zhou, what epic creature do you want to kill? Is it the fairy of Lotus Flower Cave or the Vajra in the depths of Myriad Buddha Cave? Li Xian asked with a grin. Those epic creatures are too powerful and dangerous. The epic creature I want to kill is an epic tiger in Binyang Cave, Zhou said. Li Xian's expression turned odd when he heard that. Don't tell me the tiger you're talking about is the one with white fur, black stripes, and a strange cross on its forehead. That's right. Zhou looked at Li Xian in puzzlement. From Li Xian's tone, there seemed to be a problem. Li Xian said with a bitter smile, that tiger is indeed the weakest among epic creatures, but the items it drops aren't bad. They're even very rare and useful. Therefore, the tiger in Binyang Cave is a protected animal. If you want to kill it, you have to be qualified. What rare item can such a weak tiger drop? Zhou found it unbelievable. Li Xian rolled his eyes at him and said, have you heard of the story of Buddha cutting his flesh to feed the tiger? Legend has it that the tiger in Binyang Cave is the descendant of that tiger. They aren't strong themselves, but their life providence is unique and has great uses. No one doesn't want it. Chapter 187. What's the life providence of the tiger? Zhou asked. Its life providence is called Lucky Baby Tiger. Think about it. A newborn baby tiger that is about to be eaten by its mother actually encounters Buddha, making Buddha sacrifice himself to feed the tiger. Don't you think this is lucky? Li Xian said. I'm indeed lucky. I'm extremely lucky, Wang Lu said with a nod. That's why that baby tiger's life providence comes with an extremely rare luck stat. If you can obtain a baby tiger companion beast and take it out to kill dimensional creatures, not only will you obtain more dimensional crystals and companion eggs than usual by killing the same number of dimensional creatures, but the dimensional crystal's value and companion egg stats will also be better than usual. Do you think it's valuable? Li Xian said. Valuable. It's too valuable. Even an excellent grade epic companion beast might not be as valuable as it, Wang Lu said in agreement. That's why there are too many people who want a baby tiger. Not to mention us. Even those epic-ranked big shots want a baby tiger. It was also because of this that the tiger in Binyang Cave became an endangered dimensional creature. In the past, there have been several clashes in Binyang Cave because of it. Finally, the military was mobilized to quell the matter. After that, the place was taken over by the military. If you wanted to go in and kill tigers, you could, but you had to first obtain the qualifications from the military. Our family is considered reputable in Luoyang, but it's impossible for us to go through the back door to kill tigers. Old Zhou, I think you need to change your plan, Li Xian said. Zhou never expected the tiger he had chosen to be so famous. He couldn't help but frown and ask, then what do I have to do to obtain the right to enter and kill the tiger? Choking with sobs, Chi-Chi novel WWW. Although Zhou was very interested in the baby tiger with the lucky life providence, that wasn't his main goal. All he wanted was to obtain the speed crystal. If they made a new plan, firstly, it would be difficult to find weak epic creatures. Secondly, Zhou and company might not be able to defeat them. Speaking of this, all the big shots in Luoyang are so angry that their teeth itch. In the beginning, Everyone wanted to use their connections to get the right to kill the tiger. But think about it. There are so many big shots in Luoyang, and it's not good for the military to give face to anyone. Perhaps they had been forced into a corner. It was unknown who came up with the idea of setting up a lucky wheel outside the Binyang cave. They said that luck would decide whether they could obtain the lucky tiger cub or not. That thing costs 10,000 a turn. If you succeed, you can enter for 24 hours, Li Xian said with a gloating expression. 10,000 a time isn't considered expensive. Those big shots have plenty of money. Can't they just spend some? What's there to be angry about? Wang Lu asked in puzzlement. It would be great if it was that simple. The Wheel of Fortune that the military made is electronically controlled. As long as you press a button, the Wheel of Fortune will automatically spin. Furthermore, there are people specially assigned by the military to watch over it. Humans can't control the interference, so the chances of winning are very low. There was once a big shot who led people to spin the Wheel of Fortune. He spun it hundreds of times, but he didn't win a single time. In the beginning, the military used this to make quite a bit of money. It was just too shady and damaging. However, there was no other way. Those big shots wanted the tiger cub, so they still had to spin it. It would take at least 100 to 200 times, and at most a few hundred times to get it right once. But even if you get it right, the tiger might not drop a companion egg, right? Li Xian's saliva splattered. Isn't this a scam? Zhou Wen frowned. He had completely given up on killing the tiger. With so much money, he could just buy speed crystals. Why would he go through the trouble of fighting? Yes, it's a scam, but what can I do if you want a tiger cub? However, there are many rich people. There are many big shots who don't care about money who spin that thing. I wanted to give it a try in the past, but when I thought about how my pocket money wouldn't be able to spin it a few times, I gave up on this plan, Li Xian said as he spread out his hands. In that case, it looks like I can only give up on this plan. I'll go back and do some research. I'll find another epic creature as a target, Zhou Wen said. There's no need to give up. Follow me. I have a way to enter Binyang Cave, Wang Lu said with certainty. What solution do you have? Li Xian asked Wang Lu in disbelief. Although Wang Lu had a deep background, she wasn't a Luoyang local. Li Xian didn't believe that she had more prestige than the Li family and could obtain the qualifications to enter Binyang Cave through the back door. Just follow me. You will know when the time comes. Wang Lu looked confident. Zhou Wen, Li Xian, and Feng Qiuyan had no choice but to follow Wang Lu to Binyang Cave. Zhou Wen didn't explain his plan. He planned on seeing if Wang Lu could obtain the qualifications to enter Binyang Cave to kill the tiger. If she couldn't, it was useless. Soon, the four of them arrived outside Binyang Cave. It wasn't completely sealed. Only the cave where the tiger cub appeared was managed by the military. Li Xian led Zhou Wen and company into Binyang Cave. Not long after they walked, they saw soldiers guarding a cave entrance. Beside the cave entrance was a lucky wheel. The white lucky wheel was very eye-catching, but there was a red line that was as thin as a strand of hair. The needle had to be aimed at the red line before the system would automatically determine that it had been won. Ignoring the fact that this was an electronic lucky wheel, even a manual one wouldn't be easy to win. There was only one red button on the entire turntable. If it was pressed harder, it would spin faster and last longer. If it was pressed lightly, it would spin slower and last shorter. The only thing that could be controlled was this button. Zhou Wen wanted to use Truth Listener's hearing to listen to the internal structure of the wheel, but he couldn't hear anything. He didn't know what device was used on the machine. How long will it take us to kill that tiger? Wang Lu asked Zhou Wen. If it's just killing, it should be very fast. If nothing unexpected happens, it will take at most half an hour, Zhou Wen said after some thought. In his game, tigers could respawn at any time. He didn't know how long it would take for a tiger to crawl through a spatial rift in real life. Li Xian said, I heard that a tiger will crawl in about 2 to 3 days. Furthermore, there's usually only one tiger in the cave. There won't be several tigers appearing at the same time. I wonder if the last tiger has been killed. All right, I got it. As Wang Lu spoke, she walked towards the lucky wheel and said to the soldier guarding it, I want to spin the lucky wheel 3 times. How do I pay? Swipe a card, scan a QR code, or make a bank transfer, the soldier said with a smile. Chapter 188. Just watch. As Wang Lu spoke, she scanned the QR code and paid. Then, she walked to the Wheel of Fortune and accepted the military's inspection. She then pressed the red button. The turntable started to roll and stopped after a while. Ding, ding, ding. When the wheel stopped, Zhou Wen, Li Xian, and Feng Qiuyan's eyes widened as they looked at the Wheel of Fortune in disbelief. They saw the needle stop at the red line that was as thin as a strand of hair. The lights on the Wheel of Fortune lit up, accompanied by the sound of winning. Holy sh*T. What kind of dog's hit luck did she have? She actually won it on the first try. Li Xian's eyes widened. An officer walked over and didn't congratulate Wang Lu on winning the prize. Instead, he carefully checked the Wheel of Fortune and tried it a few more times. After confirming that everything was normal, he said to Wang Lu, "Lady, you're really lucky. Congratulations on obtaining 24 hours. You can enter now." "Wait a minute. I still have 2 more chances," Wang Lu said as she pressed the red button again. The wheel began spinning again. When the wheel stopped, Li Xian, Zhou Xian, and Feng Qiuyan gaped as they looked at Wang Lu and the wheel as though they were looking at an alien. With the lights flashing and the music playing, Wang Lu had won again. The officer's expression changed as he hurriedly checked the machine again. However, everything was normal. He tried many times, but he didn't win. Clearly, there was nothing wrong with the Wheel of Fortune. "Lady, congratulations on obtaining another 24 hours. There's one more time. Do you still want to spin it?" The officer asked Wang Lu. Clearly, he suspected that there was something wrong with her. "Why not? I spent money," Wang Lu said as she pressed her palm on the red button again. This time, the officer stared at Wang Lu the entire time, wanting to know if she had used any powers to interfere with the Wheel of Fortune. He was in charge of this area and had special abilities. If there was any power that affected the Wheel of Fortune, it was impossible for him not to tell. However, he stared at Wang Lu from head to toe. She hadn't used any strength to cheat, but when the needle stopped, the Wheel of Fortune's light lit up again. Cold sweat broke out on the officer's forehead. He didn't believe that a legendary student could cheat in front of him, but it was impossible to win 3 consecutive times. It was impossible for such a high winning rate to appear in the Wheel of Fortune's program. 72 hours should be enough, right? Wang Lu walked back to the trio and said, "Enough, enough." Li Xian and company subconsciously nodded in reply. Under the gazes of the officers and soldiers, the 4 of them entered the cave together. "Wang Lu, how did you do it?" "I'm willing to pay for your method." When there was no one around, Li Xian anxiously asked Wang Lu. He believed that Wang Lu had definitely cheated, but they just couldn't tell. Wang Lu smiled and said, "There's no method. I just casually pressed a few times and got it." "TCH, forget it if you don't want to say it." Li Xian naturally refused to believe it. Seeing that he didn't believe her, Wang Lu added, "I don't have any special merits. I'm just a little luckier than the average person. I heard from my dad that before I learned how to walk, he took me out for a walk. I climbed out of the pram and picked up a piece of paper on the grass. To my surprise, it turned out to be a lottery ticket. Then, I won the first prize that day. It was about 7 or 8 million. When I was in kindergarten, I bought a 3 yuan secondhand hair clip from a stall. Who knew that the hair clip was embedded with high-level crystals? When I was in junior high. Are you kidding me?" Li Xian didn't believe that there would be such a lucky person in this world. After all, he had never won any lottery tickets, much less picked one up. What Wang Lu said was basically a story. "Do you have any coins on you?" Wang Lu said with a smile. "Yes. Do you want to guess the coin?" Li Xian said as he took out a coin. "I'll buy 10 heads." "Go ahead," Wang Lu said. "TCH, I really don't believe it." Li Xian took his coin and threw it into the air. When it landed, it was really a head. After 10 consecutive times, Li Xian looked at Wang Lu as though he had seen a ghost. "Sister Lu, you're my sister. You're the human version of a lucky little tiger. Are you free tomorrow? Let's make a trip to Richie." When Li Xian reacted, he nearly pounced forward to hug Wang Lu's thigh. I'm not free. Wang Lu rejected Li Xian mercilessly. All right, stop fooling around. I'll explain the detailed plan first. In a while, all of you have to listen to my instructions. Don't make any mistakes. Although that tiger isn't considered strong among epic creatures, it's still at the epic stage. Any mistake might cost us our lives. Zhou repeatedly exhorted the three of them not to be careless. The tiger's weakness was only relative to epic experts. To legendaries like them, the tiger was undoubtedly a super boss. Don't worry, we aren't stupid. We know that it's very dangerous. However, old Zhou, you haven't killed a tiger before. Where did you get this strategy from? Li Xian said. I studied it from watching videos on the internet, Zhou said. Holy sh*t. Are you reliable? Those videos are of epic experts fighting tigers. We are far inferior to them, Li Xian said. If you don't make any mistakes, it's very reliable. Zhou was very certain that there was no problem with his plan. He had already tried it countless times, but he wasn't strong enough alone. He couldn't carry out his plan even if he had it. He explained the detailed plan to the three of them, especially their positioning and cooperation. Zhou made them practice it a few times. Seeing that they were familiar with the positioning, he confirmed that there were no problems and led them deeper into the cave. Zhou, can we change this plan? Let Wang Lu give the tiger the final blow? Li Xian said to Zhou. Sure, Zhou agreed readily. With Wang Lu's perverted luck, she would definitely drop something if she killed the tiger. Tigers were so rare that if they didn't drop something, they would have to wait a few more days before they could try their luck again. To his surprise, Wang Lu shook her head and said, I don't like killing. It's best you do it yourselves. After passing through a few caves, they suddenly saw a white-furred, black-striped tiger lying on a huge rock in front of them. The tiger also discovered Zhou, and company. With a roar, it pounced down from the rock and attacked Zhou, and company. 3 to the left of Xian, 4 to the right of Feng, 5 to Lu Te. In order to reduce the trouble of commanding them, Zhou only said one word from their names. Chapter 189. Is this really an epic creature? 20 minutes later, Li Xian looked at the tiger lying in a pool of blood in disbelief. He couldn't believe that it was an epic creature. They had only used 20 minutes to kill the tiger without any injuries. It was so simple that it was unbelievable. Apart from it, is there a second tiger here? Zhou asked. I knew it was weak, but I never expected it to be this weak. As expected of one of the weakest epic creatures, Li Xian said. However, Feng Qian said seriously, no, it's not that the tiger is weak, but that coach's plan was too targeted. The tiger didn't even have the chance to unleash its strength before it was suppressed to death by us. If it wasn't for coach's plan, it would be a problem if we could have killed it. Old Feng, you really don't have a sense of humor. Li Xian curled his lips and said, forget it. Old Feng, go take a look and see if there's anything good in the tiger's body. It's best if a speed crystal drops. That way, we won't have to accompany Zhou again. Feng Qian didn't say a word as he walked straight to the tiger's corpse and dissected it. Soon, he dug out a crystalline jade-white companion egg. Holy sh*t, a lucky baby tiger. Li Xian widened his eyes. His luck was way too good. He had killed a tiger, but a companion egg had dropped. How could the big shots who had killed countless tigers without obtaining a companion egg endure? How do we split the companion egg? Wang Lu asked. I've said before, I only want the speed crystal. Anything else that drops is yours. Zhou was the first to back out. He had already said it before coming, so he naturally wouldn't go back on his word just because of a companion egg. Although the baby tiger was precious and difficult for others to obtain, Zhou could kill it in-game. It wouldn't be difficult for him to obtain it in the future. I'm purely trying to help Zhou. I also said that I won't take anything, Li Xian said. I don't want it. Feng Qian was even more straightforward. I really want it, but this item is too valuable. It's not appropriate for me to take it myself. How about this? I'll accept the companion egg. Your share will be converted into money or something else, Wang Lu said. Are you guys in need of money? Instead of paying, why don't you help us enter a few more times in the future? Firstly, you can help Zhou drop the speed crystal he wants. Secondly, you can try to see if a few more baby tigers could drop. When the time comes, we can each have one. It'll be cool to bring them out, Li Xian said. No problem, I'm on call. Wang Lu also knew that something like the lucky baby tiger couldn't be calculated with money. If she wanted to take it away, she could only owe him a favor. The second tiger would only appear in 3 days, so the four of them could only go back first and come back 3 days later. Zhou was somewhat depressed. He had seen someone post that said that the tiger easily dropped speed crystals. He didn't know if Wang Lu's luck was too good, affecting the tiger's drop rate, resulting in a companion egg dropping. I'll have to wait another 3 days to kill the tiger. It's just too long. I'll do some research and see if there are any other epic creatures to kill. Zhou was about to enter the game when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. When he opened the door, he realized that the person knocking was Jing. What's the matter? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Can we talk inside? And Jing seemed rather calm this time. Her expression didn't change. Sure. Zhou let Jing in and poured her a cup of tea. And Jing didn't touch the teacup as she looked at Zhou and said, "Why did you refuse to participate in the battle for the special physique? Isn't that what you want?" Zhou said casually. And Jing looked at Zhou and continued, "Is that why you refused to participate in the battle for the special physique?" "That's part of the reason. Since it's your spot, I'm not interested in it, nor do I want it," Zhou said. "You should know that the spots can't be changed. It's impossible for me to go even if you don't go," and Jing said. "I know, but what's yours is yours. I can't take it away just because you don't need it," Zhou said. "I understand." And Jing nodded slightly and pondered for a moment. She looked up at Zhou and said, "Do you still remember that you promised me a favor when I brought you into the camp?" "Of course I remember. You can raise your conditions at any time, but it has to be within my capabilities. I don't do things that harm others for my own benefit." Zhou naturally wouldn't forget the favor he owed her. "As long as you acknowledge it, then prepare yourself. Sheng will send you to the Holy Land tomorrow," and Jing said. "What do you mean?" Zhou was slightly taken aback. "My condition is for you to replace me in the battle for the special physique. Is that clear enough? Do you understand?" And Jing said indifferently, "Why do you want me to go? Didn't you always want me to get that spot?" Zhou frowned as he looked at Jing, unsure what she meant. Previously, Jing had tried her best to stop him. She had even transferred to Guide High School to fight him, but now she insisted on him going. "On account of Uncle Feng, I can't personally teach you a lesson. However, there are many geniuses in the Holy Land. It's good to let them teach you a lesson. It'll help me vent my anger. It'll also let my mother and grandfather know that the person they think highly of is useless. Only I can help the family obtain a special physique," and Jing said as she turned to leave Zhou dorm. As Jing spoke, she turned to leave his dormitory. When she reached the door, she stopped and said without turning her head, "Remember, Sheng will pick you up at 10 tomorrow. You owe me that." Zhou was momentarily at a loss for words. All he could do was watch Jing leave in a daze. Should I go or not? Zhou was somewhat hesitant. He didn't want to have anything to do with the siblings, so he wasn't willing to go even if Jing's spot was voided. However, for some reason, Jing insisted on sending him to the Holy Land in exchange. Zhou didn't know why Jing was doing this, so he was somewhat hesitant. After some thought, Zhou took out his ordinary phone and dialed Ouyang Lan's number. "Little one, what's the matter?" Ouyang Lan was as amiable as usual. Even though Zhou had rejected her the last time, her attitude towards him didn't change. "Sis Lan, can't Jing really go to the Holy Land?" Zhou asked. "I really can't. If it were any other family, it might be possible, but the League has always been wary of the family. Being able to wipe out the family spot is something they can only wish for. How can they give the family another chance?" Ouyang Lan paused for a moment before continuing. "You don't need to feel burdened. If you don't want to go, don't go. Speaking of which, I was a little selfish. It's too dangerous there, and I didn't wish for my daughter to take the risk. Instead, I pushed you there. It's my fault." Chapter 190. Sislan, can you show me the information on the Holy Land? Zhou said after some thought. Since he didn't want to owe the family a favor, he was prepared to make a trip to the Holy Land regardless of Jing's motives. He wanted to return the favor. You really don't have to force yourself. It's fine if you don't go, Lan said. I want to take a look, Zhou said. All right then. I'll send you the information on the Holy Land. Lan paused before saying, read the information first. If you aren't confident, don't go. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to answer to Ling phone. All right, Sislan, send me the information first, Zhou said vaguely. Lan sent the information on the Holy Land to Zhou. After reading it, he realized that the Holy Land was actually a large dimensional zone. Unlike ordinary dimensional zones, there were extremely powerful creatures in the Holy Land. Those creatures were willing to give humans special bloodlines, changing their physiques accordingly. However, those powerful creatures wouldn't casually give humans bloodlines. One had to pass their test to obtain their bloodlines. At present, the known bloodlines were the 6 bloodlines of the 6 heroes. Hardadef's Holy King body was one of them. However, Hardadef's bloodline was inherited, so it naturally wasn't as powerful as the first-generation Holy King body. Zhou had already seen the Holy King body. The other 5 physiques also had their own characteristics. The most detailed introduction was a physique known as the Sun God body. It was a physique that was extremely young. One needed to cultivate in an extreme young primordial energy art to pass the test. Without a doubt, the Sun Strafe art was prepared for the Sun God body. Unfortunately, Zhou didn't cultivate the Sun Strafe art. It was difficult to say if he could obtain the Sun God body. Sislan, I've already made up my mind. I want to go to the Holy Land. Zhou felt that there was no harm in making a trip. Not only could he return the favor he owed Jing, but he could also give it a try and see if he could download the Holy Land into the game. If he could, he might be able to use the Lost Immortal Sutra to obtain various special physiques in the Holy Land. I've thought about it carefully. I think it's best you don't go, Lan suddenly said. Why? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Lan said with a bitter smile. Tinswell went there once when he was young, but no one obtained a special physique that time. Why is that? Zhou was even more puzzled. Ahem. The time he went, he had some unpleasantness with the other youths who went to the Holy Land. In the end, it turned into an armed fight, so the participants from the other families are rather unfriendly towards our family. If you go on behalf of the family, they will target you. At that time, it will be very troublesome for you. It's best if you don't go. Lan said, those who can enter the Holy Land are at most at the legendary stage, right? Zhou asked after some thought. Yes, the Holy Land has restrictions. Those above the legendary level can't enter. Lan said. I'll go. Perhaps it was as Jing had said. There were many elites waiting to teach him a lesson. However, since he had agreed to return the favor, there was no reason for him to back down. Lan told him some things to take note of and told him to be careful. It would be best if he had a chance to obtain a special physique, but it didn't matter if he didn't. Safety was of utmost importance. How can the temperament of mother and daughter be so different? If it wasn't for Jing's unique resemblance to Lan, Zhou really suspected that Jing wasn't Lan's biological daughter. Although Zhou had decided to go to the Holy Land, he had to raise his speed to 21 points before going. He had to refine the mutated fairy primordial energy skill crystal before heading there. It's definitely too late to wait to kill the tiger now. Ignoring the fact that there aren't any tigers in Binyang Cave in reality. Even if there are, killing them might not necessarily result in a speed crystal. After some thought, Zhou realized that there was only one path he could take. It was to go to the crystal shop and buy a 21 valued speed crystal. Epic crystals weren't cheap. Thankfully, a 21 valued speed crystal was considered one of the lowest grade crystals at the epic stage, so the price wasn't too ridiculous. However, even so, the price wasn't something the average person could afford. If it wasn't for the urgency, Zhou wouldn't have chosen to spend money to buy it. After all, he was short of money to begin with. Zhou got Sheng's help to complete the procedures for his suspension from school. Since he was heading to the Holy Land tomorrow, he definitely wouldn't be back for half a month. It didn't matter if he did it earlier or later. He got Ah Shang to drive him to the Shiyuan crystal shop. This time, there were quite a number of customers. It wasn't like the last time, when only Zhou Wen and Ouyang Lan were picking items. When he passed by the password-protected cabinets, Zhou Wen took a few more glances and couldn't help but recall the string of numbers on the name card. Unfortunately, Zhou Wen didn't know what those numbers meant, nor could he be sure if they were the passwords to the password-protected cabinets. Young Master One, what type of crystal do you want to buy? Ah Shang asked when he saw Zhou Wen walk to the crystal counter. I want to buy an epic speed crystal. A 21 valued one will do, Zhou Wen said. Young Master One, you haven't advanced to the epic stage. It's too dangerous to absorb an epic crystal now. If you need a legendary crystal with a higher value, I can prepare it for you, Ah Shang said. There's no need. Zhou Wen shook his head in rejection. The crystals that Ah Shang could bring were naturally given to him by the Yin family. Ah Shang, why are you free to come here today? Zhou Wen was looking at the crystals when he suddenly heard an elder's voice. He turned his head and saw that the person who spoke was indeed an old man who looked sickly. Old Master Qin, I'm here with young Master One to buy crystals, Ah Wen answered respectfully. Only then did Zhou Wen realize that the sickly old man in front of him was likely the owner of the Shiyuan crystal shop, Qin Shiyuan. Qin Shiyuan seemed somewhat surprised as he looked at Zhou Wen and said, Young man, are you Zhou Wen? Old Master Qin, you know me? Zhou Wen was somewhat surprised. Qin Shiyuan said with a smile, Of course I know. I'm afraid everyone in Luoyang City knows about Xiaolan's marriage with your dad. With that said, Qin Shiyuan pulled Zhou Wen's hand and walked into the shop. As he walked, he said, The things outside are just to fool ordinary people. You are Xiaolan's subordinate. Come into my treasure vault and take a look. Old Master, I just want to buy an epic speed crystal. Just an ordinary one will do, Zhou Wen said. It doesn't matter if you buy it or not. Let's take a look first, Qin Shiyuan said with a chuckle as he pulled Zhou Wen into the elevator. Qin Shiyuan led Zhou Wen down to the 4th basement floor. After exiting the elevator, he said to Ah Shang, who was following behind, Ah Shang, watch this place. Don't let anyone disturb us. Chapter 191. This companion beast's name is Sky God Crane. It was placed here by epic expert Lu Jiuyun. This Sky God Crane is extremely fast, and its life providence and life soul are very good. Qin Shiyuan held Zhou Wen's hand and warmly introduced the companion beasts on the 4th level to him. Zhou Wen found it odd. He was clearly here to buy speed crystals, so why was Qin Shiyuan introducing these companion beasts to him? Zhou Wen wanted to emphasize his intentions a few times, but he couldn't find a chance to interject. In fact, Ouyang Lan had already told Zhou Wen about the companion beasts here the last time she brought him here. However, with Qin Shiyuan's enthusiasm, Zhou Wen could only patiently listen. Unknowingly, the two of them arrived at the room with the locked silver-haired companion beast. After entering the room, Qin Shiyuan suddenly said to Zhou Wen, do you know that you are in danger now? Old Master Qin, what do you mean? Zhou Wen looked at Qin Shiyuan in puzzlement. Qin Shiyuan looked outside and saw that Ah Shang was still guarding the entrance to the 4th level. He whispered to Zhou Wen, everyone in Luoyang City knows that little Lan has married another man, but they don't know much about that man. At most, they know that his surname is Zhou. It's impossible for them to know that he has a son named Zhou Wen. Then how do you know about me? Zhou Wen asked Qin Shiyuan. It was Ouyang who told me. He said that he thinks highly of you and that you are very outstanding. If possible, he hopes that you can take over his job in the future, Qin Shiyuan said. What job? Zhou Wen looked at Qin Shiyuan blankly. Qin Shiyuan said with a bitter smile, Ouyang is still so cautious. He thinks so highly of you, but he didn't tell you anything? The former principal did praise me for my talent, but that was just a casual remark. It can't be taken seriously. Zhou Wen paused and looked at Qin Shiyuan. Old Master Qin, isn't the former principal a history researcher? I'm not familiar with this area, nor do I have much interest in it. You must have heard wrongly when the former principal asked me to take over his job, right? It can't be wrong. Ouyang gave you the password, right? Do you see the metal block over there? Enter the password. The things inside were left for you by Ouyang. They should be of some help to you, Qin Shiyuan said as he pointed behind the silver-haired companion beast. The item he was referring to was the metal block with the anchor pattern engraved on it. The last time Zhou came, he had seen the numbers on it and guessed that it was a password lock. He never expected it to be true. Old Master Qin, what password did you say? Zhou thought to himself, but he didn't show it on his face. He pretended to be surprised and asked, Didn't Ouyang give you the password? That's bad. There are things he left for you inside. You can't open it without the password. All you can do is wait for him to return, Qin Shiyuan said as he stared at Zhou. The old principal left something for me? He even asked me to take over his job. How come I've never heard him say that? I'll have to ask him when he returns, Zhou said. Ouyang really didn't tell you anything? Qin Shiyuan asked in surprise. Back when the old principal was still in Guide High School, he often chatted with me, but he didn't say that he left anything for me. Also, what's with the danger you mentioned? Zhou asked Qin Shiyuan. The thing Ouyang left for you is very important. If others know that it's on you, it will definitely be disadvantageous to you. Therefore, you have to hide it well and not let anyone see it, Qin Shiyuan said with a serious expression. What's that? The puzzlement on Zhou's face wasn't faked. He really didn't know what the former principal had left for him. It's a good thing that you don't know anything. Forget it. Since Ouyang didn't tell you the details, let's wait for him to return. Seeing that Zhou didn't seem to be faking, Qin Shiyuan didn't say anything else. He led Zhou out of the room with the silver-haired companion beast. When Qin Shiyuan closed the door, Zhou glanced at the silver-haired companion beast. Just like the last time he came, he was still sitting there with his head lowered. His long silver hair covered his face, making it impossible to see what he looked like. However, Zhou had a nagging feeling that behind the waterfall-like silver hair, there was a pair of eyes staring at him. Furthermore, they were smiling at him. After leaving Basement 4, Qin Shiyuan got someone to give him a speed crystal that Zhou needed. He gave him a very high discount, and finally, Zhou paid 138,000 yuan and finally obtained a 21 valued speed crystal. On the way back, Zhou's mind wasn't on the speed crystal. Was the number on the name card really given to me by the former principal? Is that string of numbers really used to open the metal block? Zhou had 10,000 questions in his mind as he felt that something was amiss. Therefore, when Qin Shiyuan said those words, Zhou pretended not to understand anything. In fact, he didn't really understand much. Former principal, what's going on? Zhou was filled with puzzlement. After Zhou left Shiyuan's shop, Qin Shiyuan sat in his office chair and used the mouse to click on the video. He constantly replayed the entire conversation between him and Zhou. After watching for a while, Qin Shiyuan muttered to himself, From the looks of it, I was overthinking things. This punk really doesn't know. Who did that old bastard, Ouyang, give the password to? He didn't even tell his biological daughter. Don't tell me that old bastard wants that thing to never see the light of day and be buried with him? After returning to his dorm, Zhou took out the 21 valued speed crystal and attempted to upload it into the game. Directly absorbing a stat crystal that exceeded his level was very dangerous. Although Zhou's body was strong, he wasn't willing to take the risk. Furthermore, Zhou was still somewhat worried. There was definitely a stat limit at the legendary stage, but Zhou didn't know what that limit was. Most people's limit was 18. His was clearly higher than the average person's, but Zhou wasn't confident that he could reach 21 points. The speed crystal successfully entered the game. When the blood-colored avatar touched the speed crystal, it immediately transformed into threads of light that fused into the blood-colored avatar's body. It made Zhou feel as though there was a force in his body fusing into his muscles, making them stronger. The blood-colored avatar's speed stat quickly increased by 1 point, becoming 19. Not long after, it increased by another point, becoming 20. However, even when the entire speed crystal was sucked dry by the blood-colored avatar, the speed stat didn't continue increasing. Zhou's heart skipped a beat. He knew that what he was most worried about had happened. His legendary stat limit was 20, so he couldn't raise his speed to 21 points. Unless he advanced to the epic stage, he wouldn't be able to learn the Dragon Gate flying immortal skill. Chapter 192. At the mortal stage, the Lost Immortal Sutra simulated 4 elemental primordial energy arts to strengthen all my stats to 11 points. But now, those primordial energy arts have been raised to the legendary stage, but they haven't increased my stats. How can I break through to 21? Zhou frowned in thought. Zhou, I heard that you were representing the family to the Holy Land? Li Xian ran over and sized up Zhou. Yes, I just decided to go yesterday. How did you know? Zhou asked. It's almost time to enter the Holy Land. The League has already announced the list. I saw your name on it. The family sure treats you well. They actually gave you this spot. Li Xian was very surprised. He never expected the family to give Zhou a spot. If I can avoid going, I really don't want to go, Zhou thought to himself. However, there was no point in saying that now. Therefore, Zhou only asked, does that mean you're going too? Li Xian curled his lips and said, if second brother had told me nicely, I might have given it to him. However, since he's doing this, I won't let him have it. By the way, how are you going to the Holy Land? Shall we go together? When we return, we will join forces and slaughter our way out. Each of us will snatch a special physique and obtain a mythical pet. Li Xian asked in rapid succession. Have you thought about which physique to snatch? Different physiques have different requirements for primordial energy arts. You have to cultivate the corresponding primordial energy art to pass the test. Just as Zhou was about to answer, his eyes suddenly lit up as he thought to himself, that's right. Why didn't I think of it? Although the Lost Immortal Sutra has the power to confuse immortals and Buddhas, making them mistakenly believe that I have a special physique, I actually don't have any. Can the special physiques in the Holy Land allow my body's stats to break through the limits of the legendary stage? With this thought in mind, Zhou suddenly felt that it wasn't a bad thing for him to make a trip. Hey, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question. Li Xian shook Zhou when he saw him standing there in a daze without saying a word. Asheng wants to send me over. Zhou snapped out of his daze and recounted the matter. Then tell Asheng if he can bring one more person. I'll go with you. I'll have a companion on the way, Li Xian said. It shouldn't be a problem. I'll inform him later. However, I'm in quite a bit of trouble. If you come with me, I'm afraid it won't be peaceful, Zhou said. People live in this world to resolve all kinds of problems. It's useless to be afraid. All right, I'll head back and pack up. Li Xian bade farewell and left. Zhou called Asheng, but to his surprise, Asheng said, young master, when if possible, it's best you don't go with Li Xian. Why? Zhou asked in puzzlement. There are some internal problems in the Li family. I'm afraid it won't be safe on the road. Asheng didn't say it directly, but Zhou understood that the problem he was referring to was likely Li Xian's second brother, Li Ma Bai. I'm also in trouble. If Li Xian isn't afraid of trouble, what's there for me to be afraid of? Zhou said with a smile. After hanging up, Zhou went to Old Dragon Cave. Asheng could help him apply for leave from school, but Zhou still wanted to inform Wang Mingyuan and company before he left. When Zhou arrived at the laboratory, he saw Zhong Zia, Hui Haifeng, and Jiang Yin. Furthermore, Zhong Zia wasn't sleeping, and Jiang Yin wasn't reading. The three of them were playing cards. Where's teacher? Zhou asked when he didn't see Wang Mingyuan. He went down Dragon's Well. You should be back soon, Hui Haifeng answered. Zhou couldn't help but worry when he heard that Wang Mingyuan had gone down Dragon's Well again. Hui Haifeng and company had never seen the terror of the dragon below Dragon's Well, but Zhou had a deep understanding of it. Although Wang Mingyuan was at the epic stage, he might not be that dragon's match. He sat by the side and watched the three play cards, but as he watched, he felt that something was amiss. The three of them were playing cards, but Zhou couldn't figure out how they were playing after watching for a while. Zhong Zia threw a 7, Hui Haifeng threw an 8, and Jiang Guan threw a 5. No matter how he thought about it, a 5 couldn't be bigger than an 8. What kind of cards are you playing? Zhou asked in puzzlement. Anything, Hui Haifeng said with a smile. Zhong Zia continued. It's boring to play proper cards. What we're doing is called reverse cards. One person will be drawn to play the reverse cards, and the other two will play the proper cards. This was the first time Zhou knew that cards could be played this way. After watching for a while, the more he watched, the more he found it interesting. Clearly, the big cards could only be played as small cards in Jiang Yan's hands. The 3 and 5 cards were the biggest cards. However, it was very easy for the 3 of them to get confused when playing cards like this. If it were an ordinary person, it would be very easy for them to get confused. However, the 3 of them played with relish and didn't make any mistakes from beginning to end. After waiting for more than an hour, Wang Mingyuan came out of Dragon's Well. Zhou told him about his trip to the Holy Land. I never expected the Yin family to give you the qualifications. If you really want to go, you have to be careful, Hui Haifeng said after hearing that. Seeing Zhou Wen's puzzled look, Hui Haifeng said with a smile, in the past, when Tianzhua was about the same age as us, he also went to the Holy Land. He didn't obtain a special physique, but he beat up the descendants of the 6 heroes who went to the Holy Land one by one, causing all the descendants of the 6 heroes to withdraw. None of them obtained a special physique. This grudge is too huge. You represent the Yin family, so I'm afraid you will be targeted. Zhou was dumbfounded when he heard that. Only then did he realize that the trouble Ouyang Lan mentioned was really trouble. Why didn't Tianzhua do that? Zhou asked. There are rumors that Tianzhua is too arrogant. He says that it's meaningless for the descendants of the 6 hero families to obtain special physiques, so he cripples them first and eliminates them. However, this is only a legend. Only the person involved knows the truth, Hui Haifeng said. If you can avoid going, it's best not. Special physiques might not be good, Zhong Zia said with a twitch of his lips. I've already promised the Yin family, Zhou said. You have to go if you agree, but when you get there, you have to pay attention to a person named Lance, Jiang Yan said. What's so special about that person? Zhou asked. Lance is also a descendant of the 6 heroes. Although he's not as famous as John, he's 10,000 times more terrifying than John. With your abilities and companion beasts, it won't be difficult for you to deal with the descendants of the other 6 heroes. However, if you encounter this person, you have to be careful. Don't be careless, Jiang Yan said very seriously without any intention of joking. Lance, I'll remember it. Zhou repeated the name Jiang Yan mentioned again and silently memorized it. Chapter 193. When Zhou left, he had an additional necklace around his neck. Instead of calling it a necklace, it was actually a red string with a bead carved from ivory tied to it. This was given to him by Wang Mingyuan. He said that he had personally made it. He originally wanted to give one to each of them after the 4 were done, but since Zhou was going to be away for a period of time, he decided to give the completed one to him first. The next morning, Sheng came to fetch Zhou and Li Xian. Ouyang Lan also came over. Before she left, she specially exhorted Zhou, Little one, I'm not worried about your abilities, but I'm afraid that you will be careless. After you reach the Holy Land, you have to be careful of the descendants of the 6 heroes. Back then, Tianzhua had a deep grudge with the descendants of the 6 heroes. They will definitely target you. Safety first. It'll be great if I can get a special constitution, but it's okay if I can't. Sislan, I got it. Zhou nodded slightly. If it were in the past, Zhou wouldn't have taken special physiques to heart. But now, in order to break through, Zhou had to fight for it no matter what. Zhou originally imagined that they would take a plane to the Holy City, but to his surprise, Sheng drove them out of Luoyang City and didn't head for the airport. Brother Sheng, isn't it too slow to drive there? Li Xian didn't dare call him Sheng, so he called him Brother Sheng. Previously, Li Xian had told Zhou that although Sheng was picked up by Tianzhua and wasn't a real and family member, and Tianzhua treated him like a brother. In the Yin family, he was Sheng, but outside, the name Sheng was very scary. This was instructed by Madam. There are many routes to choose from, and it's safe on the road. Furthermore, there are a few dimensional zones. before heading to the Holy Land. She wants you to take a look, Ah Sheng answered. What dimensional zone? Li Xian was intrigued. The closest one is in the Qinling Mountains. I don't know the name either, Ah Sheng answered simply. However, when he heard the words Qin Mountain, Li Xian's expression changed. Brother Sheng, don't tell me you really want us to head to the Qin Mountain dimensional zone? I heard that the dimensional zones there are extremely terrifying. Without epic powers, entering means certain death. It's not that exaggerated. At most, there's a high chance of death, Ah Sheng said. What's the difference? Li Xian thought inwardly. Zhou didn't know much about this, so he asked, is Qin Mountain that terrifying? Is it scary? That's where the greatest horror lies. Have you heard of the legendary Kunlun? Li Xian curled his lips. Didn't Ah Sheng say he was going to the Qinling Mountains? What does it have to do with Kunlun? Zhou was somewhat puzzled. The Kunlun mentioned in ancient myths refers to Qinling Mountain, not just the present Kunlun Mountain. Qinling Mountain is the dragon vein of our East District. The dimensional zones there are extremely terrifying. There are countless powerful dimensional creatures inside. Humans are nothing there. Even top human experts have to be careful when they enter. If they aren't careful, they might perish inside, much less this legendary stage trash. As Li Xian spoke, he asked, Brother Sheng, don't tell me you really want us to barge into the dimensional zones in Qin Mountain. Yes. This time, Ah Sheng's answer was more concise. Li Xian suddenly realized that coming with Zhou seemed to have been a wrong decision. It wasn't that he was afraid of going to the Qinling Mountains. No matter how dangerous that place was, Ah Sheng wouldn't send them to their deaths. However, along the way, Ah Sheng drove silently while Zhou gamed on his phone. He was bored to death. Is that crappy game of yours that fun? You've been grinding ants the entire way. I wonder how many ants you've killed. Did the ants offend you? If you really hate them that much, just find a real ant and kill it. Why do you have to take revenge on them? Li Xian said gloomily. Yeah, Zhou answered before continuing grinding ants. Li Xian was instantly rendered speechless. He had no way of communicating with Zhou, so all he could do was lean back in his chair and sleep. Zhou kept trying to kill the golden flying ant or shatter the white cocoon it was guarding. Unfortunately, the golden flying ant was just too fast. Zhou couldn't do either. However, grinding some companion eggs to feed his pets wasn't a bad choice. He could also try a pet fusion. The success rate of pet fusion was really low. The first fusion had the highest success rate. Every fusion, the success rate would drop drastically. As for how much it dropped, it depended on the type of pet. Due to the existence of the Grand Yin Wind skill, Zhou could quickly grind ants. Many ant eggs dropped, so Zhou began wondering if he could fuse an ant with both flying and defensive skills. It was fast and had high defense. Therefore, Zhou had been using the black-winged flying ant and the red-armored ants to fuse companion eggs. He had quite a number of successes, but his stats and skills weren't completely satisfactory to him. The red-armored, yellow-armored, and blue-armored ants each have a defensive primordial energy skill. I'll first fuse an ant with 3 skills before fusing it with a black-winged flying ant to give it the ability to fly. This will require at least 3 fusions. The success rate is just too low. Zhou tried many times, but either the skill was lost during the fusion or the fusion failed. Especially during the 3rd fusion, the success rate was just too low. It was only slightly more than 11%. He had no idea how many times he had fused them, but they all ended in failure. Thankfully, there were many ant eggs that dropped. Zhou didn't have anything else to do along the way, so he slowly fused them. When the car entered the mountainous area, there was hardly anyone around. Even cars were rare. In this era, due to the appearance of dimensional zones, many roads were no longer accessible. It was actually a very difficult task to travel between cities. If an ordinary person were to drive into a dimensional zone by mistake, the chances of them coming out alive were just too low. At present, there were relatively few private businesses in the logistics industry. It was mainly done by the League's military. Even so, there were still many accidents every year. Most of the time, people and cars would vanish together, leaving no one knowing where to look for them. As the car drove on a mountain path, Zhou Wan, who was gaming, suddenly felt his eardrums hurt. The car window shattered at the same time, and the tires burst. Accompanied by the sound of the explosion, Zhou Wan heard a strange screech. The car slammed into the railing of the mountain path as though it had lost control. It was about to rush out of the mountain. Ah Sheng suddenly rolled down the window and stepped on a mountain path with one foot, forcefully stopping the car as though it had been nailed to the ground. At that moment, the car was less than a meter away from the cliff. Zhou Wan and Li Xian were given a fright as they subconsciously looked out of the mountain path. They saw a golden glow dancing in the mountains. On careful look, it was a huge golden bird that resembled a phoenix. It was flying in the mountains like a golden glow. The bird's cry had come from its mouth. Chapter 194. Holy *T. Is that a phoenix? Li Xian said as he looked at the giant bird in surprise. Don't speak. Don't move. Don't make a sound, Ah Sheng said with a suppressed voice. When Zhou Wan and Li Xian saw how cautious Ah Sheng was, they immediately felt an inexplicable sense of pressure. They sat in the car, not daring to move as their eyes looked at the giant bird flying in the mountains. The giant bird flew very leisurely, like a golden cloud floating in the mountains. It went up and down, leisurely like an old man taking a stroll. After flying for a while, the giant bird approached Zhou Wan and Li Xian. Only then did Zhou Wan and Li Xian see that behind the giant bird was a row of chicks. The giant bird was like a golden cloud, but the chicks were only the size of quails. Although their feathers were also golden, the color was relatively light. They didn't have an intense luster, and their feathers didn't seem to be fully grown. Zhou Wan counted and saw a total of 6 chicks following behind the giant bird. They flapped their wings and tried their best to maintain their flying posture, but it was extremely strenuous. They swayed left and right as though they could fall at any moment. However, the giant bird ignored them and continued flying in front. The 6 chicks tried their best to follow the giant bird as it flew up and down, flapping their wings vigorously. This is a true dimensional creature's descendant. This was the first time Zhou Wan had seen a dimensional creature with descendants. A companion egg wasn't a real egg, but a type of life crystal. As they watched, the giant bird flew over with the chicks. When it was still a few hundred meters away from the mountain path, Zhou Wan and Li Xian felt a strong heat inundate them like a hot wind. With their bodies, they broke out in a sweat, drenching their clothes in the blink of an eye. Due to Ah Sheng's exhortations, the two of them didn't dare make a sound. They sat in the car as though they were sweating. They were still somewhat worried, unsure if the giant bird was coming for them. Zhou Wan even wondered if the giant bird was planning on feeding them to the chicks because of their strong muscles. Li Xian and Zhou Wan looked at Ah Sheng, hoping to ask him what his plan was. They were no match for such a terrifying creature. If they didn't escape now, it would probably be too late. However, Ah Sheng sat there without any reaction. He looked at the giant bird without a word, clearly having no intention of escaping. The two of them could only bite the bullet and sit there motionlessly. After a while, the giant bird flew over the top of the mountain with the 6 chicks. It ignored them. Clearly, it was only practicing flying with the chicks and wasn't deliberately targeting them. Seeing the giant bird about to fly over, Zhou Wan and Li Xian secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Seeing the giant bird fly over, Zhou Wan and Li Xian secretly heaved a sigh of relief. A little bird was out of stamina and fell from the sky. Although it tried to flap its wings to control its body, it could no longer do so. The speed at which it fell was getting faster and faster. Coincidentally, the direction in which the bird landed was Zhou Wan and company's car. What do we do? Li Xian and Zhou Wan looked at Ah Sheng. Ah Sheng clearly didn't expect such a turn of events. His expression changed as well, but he remained motionless in the driver's seat. He even gestured for them to keep quiet. The speed at which the chick fell was too fast. When Zhou Wan saw that Ah Sheng didn't move, the chick had already fallen onto the roof of the car. With a bang, the roof immediately caved in. Furthermore, there was a tiny hole in the roof. The chick's head and neck hung down from the hole as it swayed in front of Zhou Wan and Li Xian. Instantly, the air in the car seemed to freeze. Li Xian turned his head and exchanged looks with Zhou Wan. They could see each other's worry. This little bird won't die here, right? Zhou Wan was very worried that if the chick really died here, the giant bird would vent its anger on them. Dimensional creatures weren't humans. They wouldn't reason with you. It would be good if you didn't get eaten by them, much less make them pay for the car. Just as Zhou Wan was considering if he should immediately jump out of the car and escape, he saw the chick's neck move. Then, it opened its eyes and looked at Zhou Wan and Li Xian for a few seconds. Following that, he heard a series of thumping sounds. The roof made of special steel had been smashed into a warped depression. There were a few more holes. Some sharp objects had pierced through the steel plates of the roof, allowing Zhou Wan and company to see tiny claws that were as sharp as hooks. Exactly 6. Zhou Wan counted the sounds and knew that the 6 chicks had landed on the roof of their car. In the next second, before the sound formed an image in Zhou Wan's mind, the car shook violently. Outside the shattered window, a gigantic golden bird claw appeared. Then, Zhou Wan and company felt the car rapidly rise and instantly rise into the air. How can I be so unlucky? Zhou Wan felt that every time he went out, it never went smoothly. This time, he was ridiculously unlucky. Li Xian couldn't help but want to say something, but Ah Sheng had already gestured for him to remain silent and remain seated. Soon, Zhou Wan and Li Xian were able to look down at the mountains. The entire car had been lifted into the sky by the giant bird's claw. The chick looked at Zhou Wan and company for a few seconds and struggled with all its might before pulling its head out. But soon, Zhou Wan heard the ear-piercing sound of steel plates being torn apart. The roof was quickly torn open by the tiny claws, forming a larger hole. The chick from before had jumped in. Seeing that the chick was about to land on him, Zhou Wan thought of how the seemingly weak claws could easily tear through a special steel plate. He had the urge to immediately rush out of the car and escape. However, Ah Sheng gestured for him to bear with it. Clearly, he was telling Zhou Wan not to move. Zhou Wan hesitated for a moment as the chick landed on his leg. It was different from what he had imagined. The chick's body was very light, probably weighing at most half a kilogram. Its claws didn't exert any strength. Before Zhou Wan could decide what to do with the chick, a few more chicks jumped down from the hole like dumplings. They landed on Zhou Wan and Li Xian, or on the back seat. There was also a chick that landed on Li Xian's head and stood on it, as though it had no intention of moving. Li Xian was as depressed as Zhou Wan, but he didn't dare move. He had the urge to cry. The 6 chicks jumped around Zhou Wan and company, pecking at them from time to time. However, they didn't use any strength, as though they were just curious. We're doomed. If we're brought back by this giant bird, we'll definitely become its food. Li Xian lamented his bad luck. Chapter 195. The 6 chicks hopped around happily in the car, pecking here and there, their faces filled with curiosity. Zhou Wan and Li Xian clearly weren't as relaxed as them. They sat there motionless, afraid that they would anger them and make the giant bird unhappy. At the same time, they were afraid that the chicks would suddenly have the idea of testing the hardness of their beaks on them. Bam! Just as he was thinking about it, a little bird suddenly became unhappy, and its beak fiercely pecked at the car door. The car was bulletproof. Typical bombs couldn't blast open the car door, but the chick managed to pierce a hole through it. Zhou Wan and Li Xian instantly broke out in a cold sweat, mixing with the hot sweat on their bodies. They didn't know what it felt like. Thankfully, the chicks didn't test their beaks on them. Zhou Wan was fine, but Li Xian was a little unlucky. The chick standing on top of his head actually pooped. Although it wasn't much, it made Li Xian feel like dying. With another loud bang, the car shook violently. The huge golden claw that was grabbing the car disappeared as the car seemed to land on solid ground. However, when Zhou Wan looked out, he immediately knew that he was wrong. They hadn't landed at all. They were halfway up a lonely mountain. The car had landed on a stone platform halfway up the mountain. There was no way to reach the sky or the ground. Unless their car could fly, there was no way they could drive it away. Whether the car could drive away was secondary. What was most important was whether they could return alive. Just as Zhou was considering how to survive, Li Xian secretly tugged at the corner of his shirt and pointed outside the window. Zhou looked in the direction he was pointing and was immediately alarmed. This was halfway up a lonely mountain. It was at least 700 to 800 meters from the ground, but from Li Xian's window, he could see the canopy of a tree. I can actually see the canopy here? How tall would that tree be? Zhou couldn't imagine it. Although there were many mutated plants in this era, he had never seen a tree that was 700 to 800 meters tall. If this was converted into a building, it would be 200 to 300 stories tall. The phoenix-like bird landed on the treetop and let out a bird cry. It was so loud that Zhou felt his ears go numb. He couldn't hear anything from the buzzing. When the 6 birds heard the cries of the big bird, they hopped out of the window and flew towards the big bird in the canopy. Only then did Zhou realize that the giant bird didn't live on the mountain peak. Its nest was on the tree. On the stone platform of the mountain peak, in addition to their car, there were a few other cars. There were SUVs and trucks, and there were a lot of things scattered around. There were boxes of drinks and carts of wood. All sorts of things were thrown messily on the platform, but there was no one in sight. Looks like this isn't the first time the big bird has brought a car up here, but why isn't there a single person? Where did the people in the cars go? Did he escape, or has he already entered the giant bird's stomach? Zhou guessed. As Zhou pondered over it, the giant bird had already entered the tree hole with the 6 birds. At that moment, Asheng lowered his voice and said, "That giant bird is too terrifying. We are no match for it. We must not anger it." "Brother Sheng, is there an epic creature that you can't deal with?" Li Xian asked with a glimmer of hope. "I have some means against epic creatures, but it's hard to say if it's an epic creature," Asheng said indifferently. Li Xian was alarmed when he heard that. No way. Could it really be a phoenix from the legends? "I don't know if it's a phoenix, but that tree should be the legendary Wudong tree," Asheng said as he looked at the huge tree outside. "The tree outside is a Wudong tree? A phoenix perches on a Wudong tree. Doesn't that mean that the huge bird from before is really a phoenix?" Li Xian was even more alarmed. That might not be the case. In the past, I followed the overseer to conquer dimensional zones and have seen Wudong trees elsewhere. They were slightly smaller than this one. Living on them was an azure luan that had almost stepped into the mythical stage. We suffered heavy losses in that battle. Even the overseer was severely injured before we managed to kill the azure luan and chop down the Wudong tree. Asheng said, "Brother Sheng, what should we do now? Why don't we secretly climb down the mountain at night and escape?" Li Xian was even more afraid when he heard Asheng's words. Ignoring these terrifying dimensional creatures, even ordinary birds have better vision than humans. Whether it's night or day, it doesn't affect them at all. Asheng looked around and saw the cars and the items scattered on the ground. "Wait here. I'll go out and take a look." With that said, Asheng quietly got out of the car and crawled forward like a snake. It was so quiet that there was no sound at all. Soon, Asheng returned with quite a number of things hidden in his arms. These drinks still have half a year's shelf life. From the looks of it, their owners haven't been here for too long. There's no one here now. If they haven't escaped, there's a high chance that they have already entered the giant bird's stomach. Asheng handed the drinks in his hand to Zhou and Li Xian. "Only when you're full will you have the strength to escape. We don't have much time. We still have a few dimensional zones to go to, and we have to rush to the Holy Land on time. We can't waste too much time here." The 3 of them decided to leave immediately while the giant bird had just returned to the tree hole. It was unlikely that it would come out so soon. After drinking some drinks and eating some snacks to fill their stomachs, the 3 of them immediately got up and secretly went to the edge of the cliff to look down. Not only was the mountain steep, but the stone walls were as smooth as a mirror. There was almost no place to stand. "This place is too steep. If I don't use a flying pet, I'm afraid I won't be able to get down," Li Xian said with a sullen expression. "You can't use companion beasts. Dimensional creatures have territorial instincts. If you use other companion beasts, you will be making an enemy of it. When the time comes, it will only infuriate the giant bird. Young Master One, can you go down yourself? Ah Sheng asked Zhou Wen. Sure. It wasn't difficult for Zhou Wen to continue. All right, I'll carry Li Xian. Let's go down together. After Ah Sheng said that, he squatted down and waited to carry Li Xian. Brother Sheng, there's no need. There's really no need. I should be able to give it a try myself. It won't be too much of a problem. Li Xian hurriedly rejected Ah Sheng's good intentions. The three of them climbed down together, so it was difficult to ascend and descend the mountain. Zhou Wen used the Dragon Gate fairy skill to barely maintain his balance as he descended. After crawling for a while, Zhou Wen saw that Li Xian was sweating profusely, but it looked like he could still hold on. He subconsciously turned his head to look in the direction of the tree hole. What he saw scared him out of his wits. The gigantic bird was standing in front of the tree hole's door at some point in time. It was staring coldly at him. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.